The cathedral doors burst open, but it's not my groom. It's my sister Teresa, wearing a white dress. Behind her, my fiancé Gregory follows, his hand possessive at her waist like she already belongs to him. "I'm sorry," Teresa announces to the 500 witnesses, "but true love cannot be denied." My mother, nods from the front pew like this was always the plan. I stand alone at the altar, abandoned for my own blood. Then the back doors slam open again. The ruthless Alpha King strides in, and the temperature drops 10 degrees. People step back instinctively. Wolves lower their heads in submission. He walks straight toward me, black eyes fixed on mine like I'm prey. "This wedding will proceed." His voice cuts through the silence like gravel on steel, but with a different groom. He stops at the altar steps, and looking up at me with something dark and hungry. "Marry me. Be my only queen." His eyes narrow dangerously. "Or watch your kingdom burn." Chapter 1. The Altar of Lies. The groom was late. I kept telling myself Gregory was simply delayed, some minor crisis, a carriage issue, anything but what my gut was screaming. I stood at the altar in my ivory gown, the weight of 500 stairs pressing into my spine like daggers. "Your Highness, perhaps we should," the priest began. "He'll be here," I said firmly. But my hands were shaking. I gripped my bouquet tighter, the thorns of the roses biting through my gloves. The pain helped, gave me something to focus on besides the growing whispers rippling through the cathedral. My gaze swept the assembled crowd. Nobility from 4 kingdoms, all gathered to witness the wedding that would cement a crucial alliance between the southern and eastern territories. My father's legacy, my duty. I shouldn't have looked at the front row. My mother sat there, rigid and pale, her hands clasped too tightly in her lap. My father beside her, jaw clenched, eyes on the doors. Waiting. We were all waiting. The cathedral doors opened. My heart leapt, then shattered. It wasn't Gregory. It was Teresa. My sister walked down the aisle in a white dress, not the pale blue bridesmaid gown she was supposed to wear. White. Bridal white. Behind her came Gregory, my fiancé of 2 years, his hand settled at her waist with casual ownership. The cathedral erupted in gasps and whispers. I couldn't hear them over the roaring in my ears. "What is this?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Teresa stopped at the base of the altar steps. Up close, I could see her dress was nearly identical to mine. She must have commissioned it months ago. Planned this. "I'm so sorry, Christina," Teresa said, and her voice carried through the cathedral with practiced projection. "But true love cannot be denied." True love. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Gregory and I," Teresa continued, turning to smile at him, "we've tried to fight this. For your sake. But we can't anymore." I looked at Gregory, searched his face for shame, for hesitation, for any sign that this wasn't real. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Greg?" My voice cracked on his name. Finally, he looked up. "I'm sorry, Christina. I never meant to hurt you. But Teresa and I, we're in love. We have been for months." Months. The engagement party last spring. The summer festival where Teresa had clung to his arm, and I'd thought nothing of it. Every late meeting, every canceled dinner, every time he'd seemed distracted. "You've been having an affair," I said flatly. This entire time." "It's not an affair if it's true love," Teresa said, with the audacity to sound wounded. I turned to my parents. Surely they would say something. Surely... My mother stood. For one wild moment, I thought she would defend me. "Serafina," she said, and she'd used my real name, not Christina, the name I'd chosen for myself. "Be reasonable. They're in love. Would you really force your sister to live without her soulmate?" The cathedral went silent. My own mother was taking her side. "Mother," I started. "This is difficult for everyone," my father cut in, finally speaking. His voice was measured, political. Perhaps we should postpone and discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss, Teresa interrupted. She placed a hand on her stomach, and I noticed for the first time the slight swell there. I'm pregnant. 3 months. Gregory is the father. The world tilted. 3 months pregnant. Which meant they'd been together since before our engagement party, before Gregory had proposed to me in the palace gardens, dropping to one knee with my grandmother's ring. Every moment had been a lie. I felt something crack open inside my chest, not my heart breaking, but something deeper, primal. My wolf, silent for so long, suddenly howled. The sound must have been audible because several wolves in the congregation flinched. Your Highness, the priest whispered urgently. Your eyes. I could feel it. The shift, trying to force its way through. My wolf wanted blood, wanted to ripe and tear and make them pay for this humiliation. Control yourself, my mother hissed. You're making a scene. Making a scene. As if I was the problem here. As if my sister hadn't just stolen my groom, my wedding, my life in front of 500 witnesses. The rage should have consumed me. Instead, it crystallized into something cold and sharp. Get out, I said quietly. Teresa blinked. What? Get out. I descended the altar steps slowly, and people moved back instinctively. Both of you, now. Christina, please, Gregory started. Don't you dare speak to me. My voice was barely human now, roughened by the wolf clawing at my control. You stood in my father's hall and asked for my hand. You promised me forever, and you've been bedding my sister for months. We didn't mean for it to happen, Teresa tried, but her voice wavered now. She could smell the rage coming off me in waves. I don't care. I looked at my parents. Get them out of this cathedral, now, or I will. My father stood, a mouth opening to issue orders. The back doors of the cathedral slammed open. Every head turned. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun. For a moment, I couldn't make out details. Then he stepped forward, and the temperature in the room plummeted. King Luther of the Northern Territories. I'd heard stories. Everyone had. The Ruthless King, they called him. The one who'd taken the throne at 17 by killing his own father in single combat. Who'd crushed 3 rebellions before his 20th birthday. Who executed traitors publicly and showed mercy to no one. He was supposed to be in the Northern Territories. Not here. Not at my wedding. Luther walked down the aisle with predatory grace, and the crowd parted like water before a shark. He was tall, broad-shouldered, all dressed in black leather and armor, despite this being a wedding. A sword hung at his hip, actual weapons in a place of peace. His eyes were black as pitch, and they fixed on me with unsettling intensity. He stopped at the altar steps, looking up at me. Well, he said, and his voice was rough as gravel. This is an interesting ceremony so far. I stared at him. Your Majesty, this is not... Your groom abandoned you. Luther glanced at Gregory with such contempt that my ex-fiancé actually stepped backward. For your sister, at the altar, in front of 500 witnesses. He said it like he was cataloging facts for a trial. Yes, I managed. And your parents, he looked at them, appear to be supporting the sister. My mother went pale. My father's hand moved toward his sword, then stopped when he remembered who he was facing. Luther turned back to me. Unfortunate. That's one word for it, I said bitterly. Something almost like amusement flickered across his face. Then it vanished, replaced by that cold calculation. This wedding will proceed, Luther announced to the cathedral. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Your Majesty, the priest stammered. The groom has... I know what the groom has done. Luther's hand settled on his sword hilt casually, but the threat was clear. I'm saying the wedding will proceed, with a different groom. My heart stopped. He couldn't mean... Luther looked directly at me, and I saw something burning in those black eyes. Not love, not even desire. Something darker and more dangerous. Marry me, he said. Be my queen. My only queen. The cathedral exploded in shocked whispers.
Oh, you cannot be serious, my father sputtered. I'm always serious.
Luther didn't look away from me.
Your daughter requires a husband, an alliance. I'm offering both.
Why? I demanded, finding my voice. Why would you want to marry someone you've never met? His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile.
Your kingdom owes mine a debt. Blood debt. War debt. Debts that would bankrupt you within the year.
I felt cold seep into my bones.
Your father knows this, Luther continued. He's been avoiding my collectors for months. This marriage settles everything.
You're using me to collect a debt?
Rage sparked through the numbness. I'm offering you a way out of public humiliation, Luther corrected, and your family a way out of ruin.
Everyone wins. Except me. You get to remain a bride instead of a laughingstock. He tilted his head.
And you become queen of the most powerful kingdom on the continent. I'd call that winning.
I don't even know you. You didn't know him either, apparently. Luther jerked his chin toward Gregory.
At least I'm being honest about my motives.
I looked at Gregory and Teresa, still standing there, at my parents who wouldn't defend me, at the 500 witnesses who'd just watched my complete humiliation, at this dark, dangerous king offering me a lifeline wrapped in threat. If I refuse? I asked. Luther's expression went cold.
Then I collect the debt in other ways, starting with your sister's unborn child.
Teresa gasped. Gregory moved protectively in front of her.
You wouldn't, my father said, but his voice shook.
Try me. Luther's voice was utterly flat. Dead.
I have no mercy for those who wrong me. Your family wrongs me with every day that debt remains unpaid.
He looked back at me, and something in his eyes shifted, almost gentle.
But this doesn't have to be ugly. Marry me. Your debts vanish. Your family keeps their pride. And you, his voice lowered, you get revenge on everyone who betrayed you by becoming more powerful than all of them combined. Revenge. The word sang through my blood. I looked at Teresa, who'd stolen my life, at Gregory, who'd lied to my face for months, at my parents, who'd just watched it happen, at this ruthless king who was offering me power. I met Luther's black eyes.
Yes, I said. I'll marry you.
Luther exhaled quietly, like he'd been holding his breath. He turned to the priest. You heard her. Proceed with the ceremony.
But the previous groom, the priest stammered, is no longer relevant.
Luther's hand tightened on his sword.
Unless he'd like to challenge me for the bride?
Gregory went white, shook his head frantically. Then proceed. I walked down the altar steps in a daze. Luther met me halfway, offering his hand. His palm was rough with calluses. A warrior's hand. When our skin touched, something electric shot through me. My wolf, which had been raging moments ago, went suddenly still. Almost reverent. Luther's eyes widened fractionally. He felt it too.
What was that? I whispered.
We'll discuss it later, he murmured back. The priest, shaking, began the ceremony. I barely heard the words, kept staring at this stranger who was about to become my husband. His face was scarred, a line through his left eyebrow, another along his jaw. His hair was black as midnight, pulled back from sharp features. He looked every inch the ruthless killer they called him, and I was marrying him. Do you, Christina, take this man?
I do, I said.
And do you, Luther? I do. His voice was firm, certain. Then, by the power vested in me...
Wait!
Teresa's voice rang out. Everyone turned. She stood there, hand on her belly, tears streaming down her face.
Christina, please, don't do this. You don't know what he is, what he's done.
I know exactly what he's done, I said coldly. He's being honest, which is more than I can say for you. Teresa flinched. The ceremony is complete, the priest said quickly. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Luther turned to me, something dark and possessive in his eyes. You're mine now, he said quietly. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming, possessive, thorough. His hand cupped the back of my neck, holding me to him as he kissed me in front of everyone who'd just watched my humiliation. When he finally pulled back, I was breathless. Welcome to the Northern Kingdom, Luther murmured against my lips. My queen. Chapter 2. The Queen of Wolves. The journey north took 3 days. 3 days of silence broken only by the sound of hooves and wind. Luther rode beside me, close enough that our horses nearly touched, but he hadn't spoken more than necessary since we left the cathedral. I'd tried once on the first day. Why did you really marry me? He'd glanced at me, black eyes unreadable. I told you, your father's debt. There are other ways to collect debts. None as satisfying as this. Then he'd spurred his horse forward, ending the conversation. Now, on the 3rd day, I saw it rising in the distance. Thornhold Castle. It wasn't like the elegant southern palaces I'd grown up in. This was a fortress carved directly into the mountainside, all black stone and sharp angles. Towers jutted up like teeth against the gray sky. Even from miles away, I could see guards patrolling the walls. This wasn't a home. It was a weapon. Welcome to the north, Luther said beside me. I looked at him. Really looked. 3 days of riding had left him windswept but unbothered, while I felt every mile in my aching muscles. He sat his horse like he'd been born in the saddle, spine straight, hand resting casually on his sword hilt, always ready for violence. It's very... I searched for a diplomatic word. Brutal? He supplied. Yes, it is. That's the point. We rode through the outer gates. Guards saluted as we passed, fists to hearts. Their eyes lingered on me with open curiosity, and something else. Calculation. Measuring. The courtyard was massive, filled with warriors training despite the late hour. The clash of steel on steel rang out constantly. These weren't ceremonial guards playing at war. These were fighters, scarred and hard-eyed, and in the center of the courtyard stood a gallows. I couldn't look away. The wood was dark, well used, recently used. 3 days ago, Luther said, following my gaze. A man tried to poison my beta. Justice is swift here. You executed him? Her. Luther dismounted smoothly. And yes. He offered me his hand. I took it, sliding down from my horse. My legs nearly buckled after 3 days of riding, but his grip steadied me. Can you walk? He asked. Yes. Good, they're watching. I looked around. He was right. Every warrior in that courtyard had stopped training to stare at us. At me. The new queen. I straightened my spine, forcing strength into my legs. Then let's give them something to watch. Luther's mouth curved slightly. After you, my queen. He led me through corridors of dark stone. No tapestries softened the walls here. No flowers in vases. Just weapons mounted everywhere. Swords, axes, shields bearing different pack sigils. Trophies of conquest. We stopped in front of massive oak doors. Your chambers, Luther said, pushing them open. I stepped inside and froze. The room was enormous, dominated by a bed large enough for 4 people. Dark furs covered it. The walls were bare stone, broken only by a massive fireplace and... Are those weapons? I pointed at the array of daggers and swords mounted above the headboard. For easy access during attacks, Luther said matter-of-factly. The bed is reinforced steel under the frame. Harder to collapse in an ambush. You sleep expecting to be murdered? I'm alive because I sleep expecting to be murdered. He moved to a chest against the wall, opened it. Inside were clothes, not the delicate silks and pastels I was used to. These were leather, dark wool, some with armor reinforcement. Your belongings from home won't be arriving. I blinked. What? Why not? Because you're not that person anymore. He pulled out a black leather outfit, held it up. Pants, a fitted tunic with subtle armor panels, boots that looked designed for running.
You're Queen of the North now. We don't wear pastels and silk here. We wear war. I didn't agree to completely change who I am. You agreed to be my queen." His voice was flat. "This is what that means." Anger flared hot in my chest. You can't just erase my entire identity. Your identity was abandoned bride before I intervened." He dropped the clothes on the bed. "Now it's Queen of the North's most powerful kingdom. I'd call that an upgrade." I wanted to argue, but he was already moving toward the door. "Wait," I called. "Where are you going?" "My chambers. They're through there." He pointed to a connecting door I hadn't noticed. "Get dressed. Dinner is in 1 hour. The pack leaders will be there. First impressions matter." "Luther, 3 rules," he said, turning back. His voice went cold, formal. 1. You attend every execution, every trial, every battle strategy session. You are queen. You will act like it, not hide in pretty rooms making embroidery. My jaw tightened. 2. You never show weakness in public. These wolves will test you constantly. The moment they smell fear, they'll eat you alive. And 3? I asked icily. He stepped closer, looming over me. 3. You sleep in my bed, every night. I don't care if we never touch each other, but the court must believe this marriage is real and solid. Any sign of division, any hint that you're not truly my queen, and they'll use it against both of us. You want me to share your bed? After everything? I want the appearance of a united front, he corrected. What actually happens in that bed is between us. But to the outside world, we are a mated pair, unshakable. And if I refuse? His eyes went flat. Then you'll watch your sister marry her lover from a cell, and your parents' kingdom will burn under the weight of their debt. Your choice. He left before I could respond, the connecting door closing with quiet finality, and I stood there shaking. From rage or fear or exhaustion, I couldn't tell. This was my life now. A brutal castle, a ruthless king, rules designed to break me into something harder. I looked at the leather clothes on the bed, touched the soft material, noting the quality despite the warrior aesthetic. Someone had taken care with these, made them to fit me specifically. He'd planned this, known I would agree, had clothes waiting, the bastard. But as I changed into the outfit, I had to admit, it fit perfectly. The leather moved with me, the armor panels light but protective. The boots were comfortable, broken in just enough. I looked at myself in the polished shield serving as a mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Dark leather instead of pale silk. Hair loose instead of carefully styled. I looked dangerous. A knock on the main door. "Your Majesty?" A woman's voice. "I'm Nina, your lady's maid. His Majesty sent me to escort you to dinner." I opened the door. Nina was probably in her 40s, with silver threading through her dark hair and a scar running down her left arm. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "You look good," she said approvingly, "like a real northern queen, not some soft southern flower." "I'm from the south," I pointed out. "Not anymore." She gestured for me to follow. "Come, don't keep the pack leaders waiting. They'll interpret it as weakness." Everything here seems to be about not showing weakness. Nina's laugh was sharp. "Because weakness here means death. The North isn't like your pretty southern kingdoms. We survive by being harder, faster, meaner than everything trying to kill us. You want to survive?" She looked at me seriously. "Then become something they fear more than death." We descended into the great hall. The space was massive, able to hold hundreds. Long tables stretched the length of it, and wolves, human-formed but clearly wolves by the way they moved, filled every seat. They all turned to look at me. The silence was deafening. Luther sat at the head table, flanked by other men, warriors by the look of them, scarred, hard-eyed, radiating violence even while seated. "There you are," Luther called out. "Come, meet my bloodsworn." I walked down the center aisle, feeling every eye track me. The wolves were testing me, reading my scent for fear. I kept my spine straight, my expression neutral.
Don't show weakness. I reached the head table. Luther stood, pulling out the chair beside him. Sit. I sat. Yet he settled beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine, claiming proximity. My bloodsworn. Luther gestured to the men around us. My most trusted warriors. This is Kale, my beta. A man with a scar bisecting his face nodded curtly. His eyes were cold gray, and he looked at me like I was a problem to be solved. Roger, my second. A massive man with tattoos covering his arms. He grunted in acknowledgement. And Wilson, my strategist. This one was leaner, sharp-featured, with calculating eyes that reminded me of a fox. Gentlemen, I said evenly. A pleasure. Is it? Kael asked. You don't look pleased to be here, Your Majesty. The emphasis on my title was mocking. I look exactly as pleased as I feel, I replied, which is more than can be said for most political marriages. Wilson smirked. Roger's eyebrow raised. Can you hunt, Your Majesty? Kael continued, leaning forward. Or are you just decorative? I can learn. Learning in the north means dying while you figure it out, Roger rumbled. We don't have time for soft queens who need coddling. Then it's fortunate I don't need coddling, I said sharply. Don't you? Kael's smile was razor thin. You come from the south, where wolves play at being civilized, where you have servants for everything, where you've never had to fight for your life. He looked at Luther. The king should have chosen a northern wolf, someone who already knows our ways, not a pampered princess playing dress-up in leather. Laughter rippled around the table. My face heated. I opened my mouth to respond. Careful, Kael. Luther's voice was quiet but lethal. You're insulting my queen. I'm stating facts, Kael said. Oh, she's a liability. Weak, unprepared. She'll get herself killed within a month, and then what? You'll be right back where you started, except you'll have wasted time and resources on her funeral. The dismissal in his voice, the casual assumption that I was worthless, something inside me snapped. I grabbed the knife beside my plate, slammed it into the table between Kael's fingers with enough force to bury the blade 2 inches deep into the wood. Silence crashed down. I survived being abandoned by my family, I said, voice deadly calm. Humiliated in front of 500 witnesses, sold to your king to pay my father's debts, and dragged across 3 days of frozen hell to this castle. I leaned forward, meeting Kael's shocked eyes. If you think I'm weak because I haven't killed anyone yet, give me a reason. My voice dropped to a whisper. Try me. Please try me. I would love an excuse. Kael stared at me, reassessing. Then Luther started laughing. It was a real laugh, deep and genuine, filling the hall. Every wolf turned to stare. Apparently, their king laughing was rare enough to warrant shock. Now you're interesting, Luther said, still grinning. He looked at his bloodsworn. Anyone else want to test my queen's patience? Silence. Wolves looked away. Good. Luther raised his cup. To my queen. Who has more spine than most of you combined? To the queen, the hall echoed, but I heard the shift in tone, not mocking anymore, wary respect. I'd passed some kind of test. I pulled the knife from the table, set it back beside my plate with careful precision. My hand was shaking, but I kept it hidden in my lap. Luther leaned close, breath warm against my ear. Well done, little queen. Don't call me little, I muttered. Then stop being little. But he was smiling. The feast continued. Food appeared. Roasted meat, dark bread, ale instead of wine. Heavy, sustaining food for warriors. I ate mechanically, aware of wolves still watching me. Kael, to his credit, inclined his head slightly, acknowledging. Wilson looked amused. Roger just grunted and went back to eating. As the night wore on, Luther's hand found mine under the table. His thumb brushed across my knuckles once, twice. You'll do, he murmured. You'll do just fine. Later, much later, we walked back to our chambers in silence. Nina had disappeared somewhere. It was just us in the dark corridors, footsteps echoing. They would have torn me apart, I said quietly. Yes, you let them.
Let them test me like that. Yes. He stopped at our door. Because they needed to see you could handle yourself. If I'd defended you, they would have seen you as weak, someone who needs protection. And now? Now they see you as someone not to underestimate. He opened the door. That's the first step to respect. Inside the chambers, the fire had been lit. The bed looked enormous and intimidating. Which side do you prefer? Luther asked. I blinked. What? The bed, left or right? Left, I suppose. He nodded, moving to the right side. Started removing his weapons, sword, daggers, 2 hidden knives. He laid them on the nightstand within easy reach, always ready for violence. I stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. Get some sleep, Luther said, not looking at me. Tomorrow your training begins. Training? If you're my queen, you need to be able to defend yourself. He finally looked up, something serious in his black eyes. The North is dangerous. I can't always be there to protect you, so I'll teach you to protect yourself. I don't want to be a warrior. Then you'll die. He said it flatly, without malice. Your choice. He lay down on his side of the bed, still fully clothed except for his boots, and closed his eyes. Dismissed. I changed behind the screen into a sleeping shift Nina had left, then approached the bed like it might bite me. Luther didn't move as I climbed in. The bed was massive enough that a foot of space separated us. Good night, I whispered. Night, wife. I lay there in the darkness, listening to him breathe. He fell asleep within minutes, the sleep of someone who could defend himself even unconscious. I stayed awake much longer, staring at the stone ceiling. This was my life now. A warrior king who barely spoke, a castle full of wolves testing my worth, training to be something I'd never wanted to be. But as I finally drifted off, I realized something. For the first time since my sister had walked down that aisle, I didn't feel like crying. I felt like fighting. Chapter 3. The Truth About My Sister's Hands. Dawn came cold and brutal. I woke to Luther shaking my shoulder, already dressed in training leathers. Up, he said. Training starts now. I groaned, every muscle in my body protesting. 3 days of riding plus 1 night of actual sleep wasn't nearly enough recovery time. It's barely light out. Warriors train at dawn. You're a warrior now. He tossed clothes at me, more leather training gear. 5 minutes. Meet me in the courtyard. He left before I could argue. I dressed quickly, splashed cold water on my face from the basin, and hurried down. The castle was already alive with activity, servants moving through corridors, guards changing shifts, the constant background noise of a fortress that never truly slept. The training yard was full. At least 50 warriors were already sparring, running drills, practicing with various weapons. They all stopped to watch as I emerged. Luther stood in the center, 2 wooden practice swords in his hands. He tossed one to me. I caught it clumsily. It was heavier than I expected. Basic stance, Luther said. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees bent, sword up. I tried to copy his position. Felt immediately awkward. He circled me, adjusting my grip, pushing my elbow up, repositioning my feet. His touch was impersonal, clinical. This wasn't a husband instructing his wife. This was a warrior training a soldier. Attack me, he said, stepping back. What? You heard me. Attack. I swung the practice sword half-heartedly. He didn't even bother blocking, just stepped aside. Again, with intent. I swung harder. He blocked effortlessly, the crack of wood on wood jarring my arms. You're pulling your strikes, he said. Stop being polite. Try to hit me. Anger flared. I swung with real force. He blocked, twisted, and suddenly I was on my back in the dirt, his practice sword at my throat. Dead, he said flatly. Again. Get up. I got up, attacked, ended up on my back. Again. Up, attack, down. Again. Up, attack, down. By the 10th time, I was bleeding from a split lip, covered in dirt, and shaking with rage and exhaustion. "I can't," I gasped. "Then you die." Luther didn't sound cruel, just matter of fact. "In a real fight, I can't means dead. Get up." "I said I can't." He hauled me to my feet by my collar, getting in my face. "You can. You're choosing not to. There's a difference." "Why are you doing this?" Tears of frustration burned my eyes. Had I refused to let them fall, not in front of all these watching wolves? "Because I made you a promise." His voice dropped, meant only for me. "On our wedding day, standing in that cathedral, I said you'd be my queen. That means you survive. That means you become strong enough that no one can hurt you, ever again." Something in his intensity made my breath catch. "One more round," he said. "Give me everything you have left." I was so tired. Everything hurt. But I raised the practice sword one more time. This time, when I attacked, I didn't think. Just let instinct take over. The rage at Teresa, at Gregory, at my parents, at every humiliation I'd swallowed and smiled through my entire life. I actually landed a hit. The sword connected with Luther's ribs with a solid thunk. He grunted, caught my wrist before I could follow through. For a moment we stood frozen, my sword against his side, his hand around my wrist. Then he smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "Good," he said. "You're learning." He released me, stepping back, called out to the watching warriors. "Dismissed. Show's over." They dispersed, some looking impressed, others skeptical. Luther turned back to me. "We'll train every morning. You'll be sore, you'll be tired, you'll want to quit. Don't." "Why do you care if I can fight?" His expression went serious. "Because this world is dangerous, and I can't always be there. Because you're my queen, and that makes you a target. And because—" He paused, something complicated crossing his face. "Because you deserve to be able to defend yourself. No one should ever make you feel helpless again." Before I could process that, he was walking away. Get cleaned up. We have a council meeting in an hour." I stood there in the training yard, bruised and bleeding and exhausted, and smiling. The council chamber was less a room and more a war room. Maps covered every surface, marked with territories, supply lines, troop movements. The council members were all warriors, no soft politicians here. Luther sat at the head of the table. I took the seat to his right, as was my place as queen. KL, Roger, Wilson, and 4 other pack leaders I hadn't met yet filled the remaining seats. "Reports," Luther said without preamble. They went around the table, border disputes, supply issues, a minor skirmish with raiders on the eastern border. I listened, trying to follow the tactical discussions. "The Southern Kingdom sent another request for trade negotiations," Wilson said, and sliding a sealed letter across the table. My father's seal. Luther didn't even open it. "Denied." "They're offering favorable terms," Wilson continued. 30% reduction in tariffs. "I don't care if they're offering gold-paved roads," Luther cut him off. "No negotiations with the South until they pay what they owe." "The debt is settled," I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. "You married me. You said that settled the debt." "It settled the blood debt," Luther corrected. "The war debt remains. Your father borrowed heavily to fund a conflict that never materialized. That money is still owed." "How much?" 200,000 gold pieces. I nearly choked. That was the entire annual revenue of the Southern Kingdom. "They can't possibly pay that," I said. "I know." Luther's voice was cold. Which means they'll eventually have to cede territory instead. I'm simply waiting for them to realize it." "You're going to take land from my father's kingdom?" "I'm going to take what I'm owed." His black eyes met mine. "That's not negotiable." I sat back, mind racing. If Luther took territory, it would humiliate my father, destabilize the region, possibly trigger a wider war. But I also understood Luther's position. Debts couldn't simply be forgiven without setting a dangerous precedent. What if there was another way? I asked. There isn't. What if the Southern Kingdom provided something besides gold or land? Resources, military support, trade agreements that— Your father has nothing I want, Luther interrupted. He has information, I said. The idea was forming even as I spoke. The South has the best intelligence network on the continent. We know things about the other kingdoms, about movements and alliances that you don't have access to. Wilson's eyes sharpened with interest. Information can be falsified, Luther said. Not if I verify it. I leaned forward. I still have contacts in the South, people who would tell me the truth. I could act as a liaison, ensuring the intelligence is genuine. Luther studied me for a long moment. You'd spy on your own father? I'd help my father pay his debts without destroying his kingdom. I met his gaze steadily, which benefits everyone. Silence around the table. Finally, Wilson spoke. It's not a bad idea, actually. The South does have information networks we lack, and with the Queen verifying, we'd need to test it, KL said grudgingly. Give them a trial period. If the information proves valuable, continue. If not, revert to the original terms. Luther's jaw worked. He was considering it. Fine, he said finally. Draft terms. Trial period of 6 months, but— He looked at me. If your father tries to use you to pass false intelligence, the consequences will be severe. Understood. The council moved on to other business. I tried to follow, but my mind was elsewhere. I'd just negotiated my first political deal as queen, bought my father time, maybe saved his kingdom from partition. Teresa's face flashed in my mind. My sister who'd stolen my groom, thinking she was winning. But I was the one sitting at a war council now, making decisions that affected kingdoms. Who was winning now? After the council, Luther caught my arm. Walk with me. He led me to the battlements. The view was staggering. Mountains stretching endlessly, forests of pine blanketing the slopes, and far below, the northern valleys. That was clever, Luther said. The intelligence solution. It serves everyone's interests, including yours. He leaned against the stone wall. You want to protect your father's kingdom. I want to protect innocent people from suffering because of my father's poor decisions, I corrected. There's a difference. He studied me. You're angry at him, at your family. Wouldn't you be? Yes. He was quiet for a moment. My father was a cruel man, brutal even by northern standards. He saw weakness everywhere and crushed it. When I was 12, he beat me unconscious for crying at my mother's funeral. I inhaled sharply. I killed him when I was 17. Luther continued, voice flat. Challenged him in single combat in front of the entire court. It was legal, traditional, but everyone thought I'd die. He was bigger, stronger, more experienced. But you won. I won because I was willing to die to be free of him. He looked at me. I understand family betrayal, Christina. I understand rage at the people who should have protected you. Then why did you really marry me? I asked. The truth. Not the debt story. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, your sister murdered someone I loved. The world tilted. What? I whispered. 5 years ago, Luther said, still not looking at me. Your sister came to the Northern Kingdom as an emissary. She was 19, beautiful, charming. My younger brother, his voice caught almost imperceptibly. Jonathan was 12. He had a crush on her. Followed her around like a puppy. Horror was building in my chest. She poisoned him. Luther's voice went dead. Gave him wine laced with wolfsbane. He died choking on his own blood while she watched. No, I breathed. No, Teresa wouldn't. She did. He finally looked at me, and the pain in his black eyes was staggering. I have witnesses. I have the wine cup with her fingerprints. I have a letter she wrote to someone. We never found out who, bragging about it. Why? My voice cracked. Why would she do that? We think it was political assassination. Jonathan was my heir at the time. Someone wanted him dead. He paused. Your father paid blood money, massive sums to hush it up, to make witnesses disappear. Claimed it was an accident. My counsel wanted war, but I was young, newly crowned, not ready to fight your entire kingdom. So you waited, I said numbly. 5 years, and then you appeared at that altar, abandoned and humiliated, and I saw my chance. His jaw tightened. I married you because your family owes me a life, Jonathan's life, and I intend to collect. Ice flooded my veins. What are you going to do to me? I haven't decided yet. He pushed off the wall, turning to face me fully. I thought I'd use you as leverage against your sister. Make her suffer knowing you're trapped here, or maybe as bait to draw her north where I can exact justice properly. You're going to kill her, I said. She deserves death. No emotion, just fact. She murdered a child. And I'm what? Collateral damage? A tool for your revenge? You're my queen, he said, and there was something almost desperate in his voice, which complicates everything. Why? He stepped closer. Because you're not what I expected. I thought you'd be like her, vain, cruel, shallow. But you stabbed a knife between Kyl's fingers without flinching. You negotiate peace while demanding respect. You get back up every time I knock you down in training. His hand came up, cupped my face. The gesture was shockingly gentle from such a brutal man. You're making this very difficult, he whispered. Making what difficult? Hating you. Then he was gone, striding back toward the castle, leaving me alone on the battlements with a truth that was tearing me apart. My sister was a murderer. My father had covered it up, and I'd married her victim's brother. I looked out over the northern kingdom, this harsh, beautiful, dangerous place that was somehow becoming home, and I made a decision. That if Teresa had really killed Jonathan, she needed to face justice. Real justice, not a cover-up, even if that meant betraying my own blood. That night, lying in the darkness beside Luther, I spoke into the silence. I want to help you. He didn't move, but I knew he was awake. Help me do what? Bring Teresa to justice. The right way. Legally, publicly. So everyone knows what she did. Why would you do that? Because if what you say is true, and I believe it is, then she's a murderer. And I won't protect murderers, even if they share my blood. Luther rolled over, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at me in the darkness. You'd testify against your own sister? I'd testify for a 12-year-old boy who never got to grow up. My voice shook. Tell me about him, about Jonathan. And in the darkness, Luther talked. About his little brother who loved music and hated violence, who wanted to be a healer instead of a warrior, who made Luther laugh even on the darkest days. About the boy Teresa had murdered. By the time he finished, tears were streaming down my face. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Luther wiped my tears with his thumb. You have nothing to apologize for. You didn't do this. My family did. You're not your family. His voice was fierce. You're you, and you're nothing like them. He kissed my forehead, then pulled me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. Sleep, he murmured. Tomorrow we plan how to make your sister face what she's done. I closed my eyes, wrapped in the arms of a man who should have been my enemy, but somehow, impossibly, was starting to feel like home. Chapter 4. She confessed in the garden. A letter arrived 3 weeks later. Nina brought it to me during breakfast, her expression carefully neutral. From the Southern Kingdom, Your Majesty. I recognized my sister's handwriting on the envelope immediately. My stomach twisted. Luther, seated across from me reviewing reports, looked up. Open it. I broke the seal with shaking hands. Dearest Christina, I hope this letter finds you well in your new home. Gregory and I are to be married next month. A proper wedding this time, with all the ceremony our love deserves. Father insisted we invite you. though I know the journey is long and you must be terribly busy playing queen in that frozen wasteland. Still, it would mean so much to see you there, to know you've forgiven us. After all, we're still sisters. Blood is thicker than water. I do hope your monster of a husband is treating you well. I've heard such terrible stories about King Luther. They say he kills wives who displease him. Do be careful. With love, Teresa. I read it twice, feeling my hands clench tighter with each word. The casual cruelty, the mock concern, the barely veiled threat, it was all so perfectly Teresa. She wants me at her wedding, I said flatly, passing the letter to Luther. He read it, his expression darkening. She's taunting you. She's been doing that our whole lives. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. This is just more obvious. You're not going. Actually, I met his eyes. I think I should. Luther's eyebrows rose. Explain. We need proof of what she did to Jonathan. Witnesses we can bring before a formal blood trial. Teresa is confident, arrogant. If I go, if I get close to her, maybe she'll slip. Say something incriminating. Or she'll try to kill you, Wilson interjected. He'd been sitting quietly at the far end of the table. She murdered a prince. What's one more royal? She won't risk it with Luther there, I argued. It would start a war. You assume she's rational, Cale said from his position by the door. Murderers rarely are. I'm going, I said firmly, then looked at Luther. Unless you forbid it. Silence stretched. Luther studied me with those unreadable black eyes. We go together, he said finally, and we don't go alone. Full security detail. You don't eat or drink anything Teresa offers. You're never alone with her, and, his voice went hard, if anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. Agreed. I don't like this, Cale muttered. Noted, Luther said without looking at him. Make the arrangements. We leave in 2 weeks. The journey south took 4 days this time, with Luther's full guard. 20 warriors, heavily armed, making no attempt at subtlety. We weren't visiting. We were making a statement. The southern kingdom looked smaller than I remembered, softer. The palace gardens I'd once found beautiful now seemed almost frivolous compared to Thornhold's brutal efficiency. My father waited on the palace steps to greet us. He'd aged in the past month, new lines around his eyes, gray threading his hair. Christina, he said, arms spread for an embrace. I stepped past him, moving toward the palace entrance. Your Majesty, I said formally. Thank you for your hospitality. The rejection landed. I saw him flinch. Luther's hand found the small of my back, a proprietary and protective. Where are our chambers? The east wing. My mother appeared, descending the steps. She looked at me with something between disappointment and pity. You look different, darling. I am different, I said simply. She opened her mouth to say more, but Teresa emerged from the palace, radiant in pale pink silk. Sister! She rushed forward as if to embrace me. I caught her wrists before she could touch me, holding her at arm's length. Teresa. Her smile faltered for just a moment. My, someone's learned northern manners. How rigid. Practical, Luther corrected, his voice cold enough to frost glass. Lady Teresa, congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. Teresa's eyes slid to him, and I saw calculation there, fear masked by bravado. Your Majesty, how kind of you to attend. And I know you're terribly busy with whatever it is northern kings do. Dispensing justice, Luther said mildly. Executing murderers, the usual. The word murderers hung in the air like a blade. Teresa's smile went brittle. How barbaric! We're much more civilized here in the South. Are you? I asked quietly. She looked at me sharply, trying to read my expression. Of course. We believe in mercy, forgiveness. Cover-ups? I suggested. Her eyes narrowed. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? Luther stepped forward, and Teresa actually backed up. I think you know exactly what we mean, but we're guests here. Let's save unpleasant conversations for later." "How diplomatic," my father interjected quickly, clearly trying to diffuse tension. "Please come inside. Rest from your journey." The wedding is in 3 days. Plenty of time to catch up." We were shown to chambers in the East Wing. Luxury compared to Thornhold. Silk sheets, delicate furniture, flowers everywhere. It felt suffocating. "I can't breathe here," I muttered, pulling at the collar of my dress. "Then change," Luther said, already removing his formal coat. "You're not their princess anymore. You're my queen. Wear whatever you want." I changed into the northern leathers I'd brought, immediately feeling more myself. Luther was examining the room with a warrior's eye. "No weapons, furniture too light to be defensive, windows too accessible." He moved to the door, testing the lock. "We're not sleeping here." "What?" "This room is indefensible. We'll sleep in shifts, armed, and I'm posting guards outside." His voice left no room for argument. Your sister is a murderer, Christina. I'm not taking chances." That night, the palace held a welcome feast. Teresa and Gregory sat at the high table, playing the devoted couple. He kept his hand on hers, whispering things that made her laugh. I felt nothing watching them. No jealousy, no longing, just a distant, clinical disgust. "You're staring," Luther murmured beside me. "I'm studying," I corrected, watching how they perform. "And? They're good actors, but actors need an audience. Watch what happens when they think no one's looking." I was right. Between courses, when the attention shifted elsewhere, Teresa's smile dropped. Gregory's hand left hers. They sat in stiff silence until someone looked their way again. Then the performance resumed. "Trouble in paradise," Wilson observed from Luther's other side. Or guilty conscience," Kale suggested. After dinner, Teresa cornered me in the garden. Her guards stayed back, giving us privacy. Luther's warriors shadowed me from a distance. "You've changed," Teresa said, circling me like a predator. "You used to be so soft, pliable. Now look at you. Leather and weapons, playing warrior queen." "I'm not playing," I said evenly. "Aren't you?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You think marrying that monster makes you powerful? You're still the same scared little girl who never fought back, who let me take everything." "You're right," I said, and her smile widened. "I never fought back. That was my mistake." Her smile faltered. "But I'm not that girl anymore," I continued. "Your mistake is thinking I still am." "Is that a threat?" "It's a statement of fact." I stepped closer. And she actually retreated. "Why did you come to the Northern Kingdom 5 years ago, Teresa? What were you really doing there?" Her face went carefully blank. "I was an emissary. Diplomatic relations." "Diplomatic relations," I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call poisoning a 12-year-old prince?" She went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you? Prince Jonathan, Luther's younger brother. He died while you were visiting. Strange coincidence." "That was an accident." "Was it?" I moved even closer, backing her against the garden wall. "Because Luther has evidence that says otherwise. Witnesses. The wine cup with your fingerprints. A letter in your handwriting." "You're bluffing," she hissed, but panic flickered in her eyes. "Try me." My voice went cold. "You murdered a child, Teresa." And father covered it up. How much did he pay? How many witnesses did you make disappear?" "You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" I smiled. "Why do you think Luther married me? You think it was about debts? It was about justice. For his brother. The brother you killed." Teresa's breathing quickened. "If you accuse me publicly, I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone how you schemed to steal my Gregory, how you—" "I don't care what lies you tell," I interrupted, "because the truth is coming out, one way or another." "Christina," her voice turned pleading, desperate, "I'm your sister, your blood. You can't do this to me." "You stopped being my sister when you stole my groom at the altar." I stepped back. "Everything after that? Just made it easier." I turned to leave. "Wait." Teresa grabbed my arm, nails digging in. Please. If Luther accuses me, Father won't be able to protect me. They'll execute me. I know. You'd let them kill me? I looked at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. You let a 12-year-old boy die. Why should your life matter more than his? He was nothing, she spat, rage breaking through the fear. A weak little prince who cried about wanting peace. The North needed a strong heir, not some soft... She stopped, realizing what she'd admitted. Thank you, I said quietly. That's all I needed. Her face drained of color. You can't... I didn't mean... Yes, you did. I pulled free of her grip. And now I have exactly what Luther needs. A confession, witnessed. I gestured to the shadows. Wilson and Cale stepped forward, having heard everything. Teresa looked between us, trapped. Then her expression twisted into something ugly. You bitch, she snarled. You set me up. I gave you a chance to tell the truth, I corrected. You chose to confirm you're a murderer instead. Father will stop this. Father can't even pay his debts, I said. What makes you think he has the power to stop a blood trial? Christina, please. But I was already walking away, Luther's warriors flanking me. Behind me, I heard Teresa screaming my name, threats and pleas mixing together. I didn't look back. Luther was waiting in our chambers. He stood as I entered, reading my expression. You got it, he said. She confessed. Called Jonathan weak, said the North needed a strong heir. Wilson and Cale heard everything. Something that might have been relief crossed his face. Then we have her. What happens now? Now we invoke the blood trial. He moved to the desk, pulled out parchment. A formal accusation before the assembled courts of both our kingdoms. She'll have to answer for what she did. She'll run, I said, the moment she realizes she can't. Luther's smile was sharp. I've already posted guards at every exit. She's trapped. I should have felt guilty. She was my sister, my blood. But all I felt was grim satisfaction. When? I asked. Tomorrow, before the wedding. He looked at me. Are you ready for this? Once we start, there's no going back. Your family will hate you. Your father's kingdom will be in chaos. They should have thought of that before covering up murder, I said firmly. Do it. Luther crossed to me, cupped my face in both hands. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm just trying to do what's right. That's what makes you remarkable. He kissed my forehead. Most people wouldn't. Most people would protect their family regardless. Most people's sisters aren't murderers. True. He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself lean into his strength. Tomorrow will be difficult. I know. I'll be beside you the entire time. I know that too. We stood there in the southern palace that used to be my home, surrounded by people who used to be my family. And I realized I wasn't losing anything tomorrow. I'd already lost it all at that altar. Tomorrow was just making it official. Chapter 5. I watched her fall. The throne room was packed. Every noble from both kingdoms had been summoned with less than a day's notice. Word had spread quickly. The Northern King was invoking a blood trial. No one knew who the accused was yet, but speculation ran rampant. I stood beside Luther at the front of the room, dressed in full Northern regalia. Black leather and silver, the crown of the Northern Queen on my head for the first time. It was heavy, cold, and somehow exactly right. My parents sat on their thrones, looking confused and increasingly alarmed. Teresa stood near them with Gregory, wearing her wedding dress. She'd insisted the ceremony would proceed on schedule despite Luther's dramatics. She still thought Father would protect her. This court is now in session. Luther's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. Look, I invoke the ancient right of blood trial, a formal accusation of murder before assembled witnesses. The accused will answer for their crimes or face judgment. My father stood. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. If you have grievances, they should be addressed through proper diplomatic channels. Murder isn't a grievance, Luther interrupted coldly. It's a crime, and crimes demand justice, not diplomacy. Who stands accused? my mother asked, though her eyes kept darting to me. She was starting to understand. Luther gestured to his warriors. They moved through the crowd toward Teresa. "Lady Teresa of the Southern Kingdom," Luther said, "you are accused of the murder of Prince Jonathan of the Northern Kingdom. 5 years ago, in the northern castle, you poisoned him with wolfsbane. Yet he was 12 years old." The throne room exploded. Teresa went white, then red. "That's absurd. It was an accident, everyone knows." "Everyone knows your father paid blood money to cover it up," Luther corrected. "But money doesn't erase murder." "You have no proof," my father said, but his voice shook. "Actually, we do." Wilson stepped forward, carrying a leather satchel. He removed items one by one, placing them on the evidence table. The wine cup used to poison Prince Jonathan, with Lady Teresa's fingerprints preserved in wax casting, testimony from 3 servants who witnessed her giving him the wine, and a letter, he held up yellowed parchment, in Lady Teresa's own hand, describing the deed to an unknown recipient. Teresa lunged forward. "That's fake! You forged—" "Your handwriting is distinctive," Wilson said calmly, and holding the letter out of reach. "We had experts verify it. This is authentic." "Father, do something!" Teresa shrieked. My father looked at Luther, at the evidence, at his daughter. Calculation warred with desperation on his face. "King Samuel," Luther said quietly, "you can admit you helped cover up a murder, or you can let your daughter stand trial alone. Choose wisely." Silence. My father slowly sat back down. I knew nothing of this." Teresa's face crumpled. "You liar! You helped me! You paid—" "Silence!" my father commanded, but his voice cracked. He was choosing his kingdom over his daughter. Finally. "I'll need testimony," Luther said, looking at me, "from someone who knows Lady Teresa well, someone she might have confessed to." This was my moment. I stepped forward, feeling every eye in the room lock onto me. "I'll testify," I said clearly. "Christina, no," Teresa started. "You murdered a child," I said, voice steady despite my racing heart. "I won't protect that. I won't protect you." "I'm your sister." "You stopped being my sister when you stole my groom at the altar," I said. "But even before that, before I knew what you'd done to Jonathan, you were never really my sister, were you? Just someone who took everything I had because you could." Teresa's face twisted with rage. "You self-righteous bitch! You think you're so noble now? You're just as guilty. You married him for revenge. You want me to suffer for humiliating you." "I want you to face justice for killing a child," I interrupted. "Whatever else I am, I'm not a murderer. You are." "Prove it," Teresa snarled. "You have a cup and a letter." "That's not proof I did anything." "You confessed," I said quietly. She froze. "Last night, in the garden. You said," I looked at Wilson and Cale, and I quote, "He was nothing, a weak little prince who cried about wanting peace. The North needed a strong heir. You admitted Jonathan was weak, admitted you knew what happened to him, admitted you thought his death was justified." "I was speaking hypothetically." "We heard you," Kael said flatly. "Wilson and I both. You confessed to knowing details no innocent person would know." "You set me up," Teresa breathed. "You lured me." "I gave you a chance to tell the truth," I said. "You chose to brag about murdering a child instead." The throne room was dead silent. Gregory, who'd been standing frozen beside Teresa, suddenly stepped back, away from her. "Teresa, tell me this isn't true." "Of course it's not true," she said desperately. "They're lying. They're all lying to frame me." "Why would Christina lie?" Gregory asked quietly. "She hates us both. If she wanted you destroyed, she'd have easier ways." "Because she's jealous." "I'm not jealous," I said tiredly. "I'm disgusted. There's a difference." Luther stepped forward, his presence commanding instant attention. "Lady Teresa, you stand accused of murder. The evidence is substantial. The testimony is credible. How do you answer?" Teresa looked around wildly, at our father who wouldn't meet her eyes, at our mother who was crying silently, at Gregory who'd moved away from her, at the assembled nobles watching with horrified fascination, at me.
"You'll regret this," she hissed. "When they execute me, you'll remember you're the one who put me there. You'll live with that guilt forever." "No," I said softly. "You'll die with the guilt of what you did. I'll live knowing I did what was right." Her face contorted. Then she threw herself at me, nails extended like claws. Luther caught her before she got within 3 feet, holding her back effortlessly. "That," he said coldly, "is assault on a queen. Add it to her charges." "The penalty for regicide is death," Wilson announced formally. "Execution at dawn." "No," my mother sobbed. "Please, she's our daughter."
"She murdered my brother," Luther said, and his voice carried the weight of 5 years of grief. "A child who never hurt anyone, who wanted peace. She killed him because someone paid her to, and she thought she could get away with it." He looked at Teresa, still struggling in his grip. "You almost did. But justice delayed isn't justice denied. It just takes longer." "Please," Teresa whispered, all the fight draining out of her. "Please don't kill me. I'll do anything. I'll confess publicly. "You'll face the consequences of your actions," Luther said. He nodded to his guards. "Take her to the cells." As they dragged her away, Teresa screamed. Curses, threats, pleas all mixed together. The sound echoed through the throne room long after she'd disappeared. Gregory stood frozen, staring at nothing. "I loved her," he said to no one in particular. "I thought she said it was an accident, that the prince just got sick." "She lied to you too," I said, not unkindly. "She's good at that." He looked at me finally, really looked. "I'm sorry, for everything. I was a fool." "Yes," I agreed. "So you were." He flinched but nodded. "For what it's worth, you're better off, with him." He glanced at Luther. "He actually cares about you. I just cared about myself." It was probably the most honest thing Gregory had ever said to me. "Thank you for that," I said quietly. He walked away, shoulders slumped, destroyed. My father approached slowly. "Christina, don't," I held up a hand. "Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just don't." "I thought I was protecting her," he said anyway. "She's my daughter. What father wouldn't—" "A good one," I interrupted. "A good father would have made her face consequences, taught her actions have meaning. Instead, you taught her she could do anything, even murder a child, and you'd clean it up." His face aged 10 years in that moment. "You're right," he whispered. "I failed. Both of you. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring Jonathan back," Luther said coldly. "And it doesn't absolve you of your part in this." "What will you do to me?" my father asked. Luther considered. "The debt remains. Your kingdom still owes 200,000 gold pieces or territory equivalent, but—" He glanced at me. "My queen negotiated intelligence sharing as alternative payment. I'll honor that agreement. You have 6 months to prove the intelligence valuable. If not, we revert to the original terms." Relief flooded my father's face. "Thank you. Thank you, Your Majesty." "Don't thank me," Luther cut him off. "Thank your daughter, the one you didn't protect. She's the only reason your kingdom survives this." My father looked at me with something like awe and regret. "I'll leave you to your wedding preparations," I said coldly. "Although I imagine you'll want to postpone now." "Christina, please." But I was already walking away, Luther at my side. That night, we stood on the palace balcony watching the moon rise over the southern kingdom. "Tomorrow she dies," I said quietly. "Yes. I should feel something. Guilt, sadness, anything. But I'm just empty." Luther's arm came around my waist, pulling me against him. "You feel relief, justice being done. That's not wrong. She's my sister." "She was your sister," he corrected gently. "Before she chose cruelty over family, before she murdered my brother. She made her choices.
You're just ensuring she faces them. I leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. Will I ever stop being angry at them? My family? Probably not, Luther said honestly, but the anger will fade from raw to manageable. You'll build a new life, new family. The old wounds will scar over. Is that what happened with you? With your father? Eventually. His grip tightened. But I had to kill him to get free. You're getting free without bloodying your own hands. That's better. You're bloodying yours for me. That's what husbands do, he said simply. I turned in his arms, looking up at him. When did this become real? Us? He smiled slightly. For me? The moment you stabbed that knife between Kyl's fingers. For you? When you told me about Jonathan, I admitted. When you trusted me with your pain. We're a mess, Luther observed. We are, I agreed. But we work. We do. He kissed me then, slow and deep and thorough. Not claiming, not possessive, just present, real. When we finally broke apart, I rested my forehead against his chest. I meant what I said at the trial, I whispered. I'm not doing this out of revenge. I'm doing it because it's right. I know. He kissed the top of my head. That's why I love you. The words hung in the air between us. I pulled back to stare at him. What? Luther looked almost shy, an expression I'd never seen on the Ruthless King's face. I love you. I've been trying not to, because you didn't choose this marriage. But watching you stand up to your sister, testify against your family, choose justice over blood. He cupped my face. You're everything I never knew I needed. Tears burned my eyes. I love you too. I think I have for weeks. I just didn't want to admit it. Because I'm ruthless and brutal and killed my own father. Because you scare me, I admitted. The depth of feeling you inspire. It's terrifying. Good, Luther said. Love should be terrifying. If it doesn't scare you, it's not real. He kissed me again, and this time I felt it differently. Not a husband claiming his wife. Two people choosing each other despite everything. Take me home, I whispered against his lips. Back to Thornhold. After the execution, Luther promised. After justice is served. Dawn came cold and clear. The execution was public, as was tradition. The entire court assembled in the courtyard. Teresa was led out in chains. She'd aged overnight, eyes hollow, face drawn. She searched the crowd, found me. Sister, she called out. Please, one last mercy. Luther looked at me. Your choice. I could grant her exile instead of death, could spare her life even now. I thought of Jonathan, 12 years old, dying while she watched. I thought of every cruelty she'd inflicted, every betrayal, every lie. No, I said clearly. The sentence stands. Teresa's face crumpled. I'm pregnant, she said desperately. You'd kill an unborn child. You're not pregnant, the executioner said flatly. We checked. You lied. Even now, even facing death, still lying. Any last words? Luther asked formally. Teresa looked at me with pure hatred. I hope you suffer. I hope he breaks your heart like you've broken mine. I hope— That's enough, Luther said. He nodded to the executioner. It was quick, clean, justice served. I didn't look away, didn't close my eyes. I owed Jonathan that much, a witness to his murderer facing consequences. When it was over, Luther took my hand. Let's go home. We rode out within the hour, leaving the southern kingdom behind. I didn't look back, not once. Chapter 6. The King Who Kneels. Thornhold had never looked more welcoming. After 2 weeks in the south, watching my family crumble and my sister face execution, the brutal northern castle felt like sanctuary. The guards saluted as we rode through the gates. Warriors called out greetings. Even the cold mountain air felt cleansing. Home, I murmured. Luther glanced at me, something warm in his expression. Yes,
Home. Nina was waiting in our chambers, a fire already lit. Your Majesty, she greeted me with unusual gentleness. I heard what happened. You did the right thing. Did I? I sank onto the edge of the bed, exhaustion crashing over me now that the adrenaline had faded. She's dead because I testified. She's dead because she murdered a child, Nina corrected firmly. You just made sure she couldn't hide from it anymore. Luther dismissed Nina with a nod, then knelt in front of me. The ruthless king on his knees. It should have been shocking, but somehow felt natural. Talk to me, he said quietly. I keep seeing her face. At the end, the hatred in her eyes. She hated you long before the execution, Luther said. This just gave her a target for it. I know, but knowing doesn't make it easier. I looked at him. How did you do it? After you killed your father? How did you live with it? By remembering why I did it. His hands found mine. By remembering every bruise, every broken bone, every time he made me feel worthless. By knowing that if I hadn't stopped him, he would have destroyed me completely. Do you regret it? Not for a second. He stood, pulling me up with him. And you won't regret this either. Not once the numbness fades and you remember what she did, who she hurt. He was right. I knew he was right. But tonight, I just wanted to forget. Hold me, I whispered. He did. We lay down on the bed fully clothed, and he wrapped around me like a shield. His heartbeat steady under my ear, his warmth seeping into my bones. I fell asleep feeling safe for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Luther shook me awake at dawn as usual. Training, he said. I groaned. Can't we skip just one day? No. But his voice was gentler than usual. You need this. The routine, the movement. Trust me. He was right. Again. In the training yard, I lost myself in the physical demands. Block, strike, dodge, roll. My body remembered the patterns Luther had drilled into me. I was faster now, stronger. When I landed a solid hit on his ribs, he actually grunted. Good, he said, breathing hard. Again. We sparred for an hour. By the end, I was sweating and exhausted and felt more human than I had since the trial. Kael approached as we finished. Your Majesty, a moment? I tensed, expecting another challenge or test. Instead, he inclined his head respectfully. I underestimated you. At the trial. The way you testified against your own blood. He paused. That took courage. Real courage. Not everyone has that. It was probably the longest speech I'd heard from him. Thank you, I said, genuinely surprised. The pack respects you now, Kael continued. They see you as a true northern queen. One of us. Something warm bloomed in my chest. Acceptance. Finally. That means more than you know, I said. Kael nodded once and walked away. Luther's hand found mine. See, I told you they'd come around. You also said they'd eat me alive if I showed weakness. Both things can be true. He pulled me closer, despite the sweat and dirt covering us both. You've proven yourself, multiple times over. They'd follow you into battle now. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. In the north, it always comes to that eventually. He kissed my temple. But when it does, you'll be ready. Over the following weeks, something shifted. Luther started seeking me out, not for official duties, but just to be near me. He'd appear in the library while I was reading, settling into the chair across from me without speaking. He'd find me on the battlements watching the sunset and simply stand beside me, our shoulders touching. At night, the space between us in bed grew smaller. We'd started this marriage sleeping on opposite edges of that massive bed. Now we gravitated toward each other in sleep, waking tangled together. He still trained me every morning, but the sessions took on a different quality. More teaching, less testing. He'd adjust my stance with gentle hands, praise my improvements, push me just hard enough to grow without breaking. You're different, I observed one evening. We were in his study, Our study now, really. He was reviewing reports while I worked on intelligence summaries from the South. Different how? He didn't look up from his documents. Softer, with me, at least. That made him look up. Is that a complaint? An observation. I set down my quill. The ruthless king who threatened to burn kingdoms seems to have developed a weakness for his wife. His mouth curved. So weakness implies vulnerability. I prefer to think of it as strategic resource allocation. You're allocating resources to bringing me tea every afternoon? You like that particular blend. It makes you happy. A happy queen is more effective. But his eyes were warm with humor. Pure strategy. Of course. I stood, moving around the desk to him. And when you kiss me goodnight? Also strategy? Critical diplomatic relations, he said solemnly, even as his hands found my waist. And when you hold me after nightmares? Ensuring the mental fitness of my most important advisor. He pulled me into his lap. Can't have you sleep-deprived during council meetings. You're ridiculous, I said, but I was smiling. I'm in love, he corrected quietly. Makes a man do ridiculous things. My breath caught. He'd said it before, but it still made my heart race every time. I love you too, I whispered. He kissed me then, slow and deep. These kisses were different from the claiming ones at our wedding. These were conversation, question, and answer, promise and acceptance. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I never thought I'd have this, Luther said quietly. After my father, after Jonathan died, I thought I was too damaged, too brutal, that I'd be alone forever. You're not alone anymore. No. He smiled. I have a queen who stabs knives between people's fingers and testifies against murderous sisters. I'm the luckiest bastard in the kingdom. I laughed, the sound surprising me. I'd laughed more in these past weeks than I had in years before. We should probably return to work, I said without making any move to leave his lap. Probably. He made no move to release me. We sat there in comfortable silence, work forgotten, just being together. A knock interrupted us. Wilson entered without waiting for permission. He was the only one who dared. Apologies for the interruption, but we have a situation. Luther sighed, but didn't push me off his lap. Report. The Southern Intelligence Network just sent word. There's been an incident at the eastern border. Raiders hit 3 villages. Casualties are significant. I straightened. My father's kingdom? The very edge of it, bordering disputed territory. Wilson spread a map on the desk. But the raiders weren't random bandits. They were organized, well-armed, wearing no identifiable markers. Mercenaries, Luther said grimly. Someone hired them, I added, studying the map. But who? And why target those specific villages? That's the question. Wilson pointed to the attacked locations. These villages are small, relatively poor, nothing valuable enough to warrant a coordinated raid. Unless someone wanted to destabilize the region, Luther finished. Make it look like my father can't protect his own territory. Which would give others justification to move in, I said, understanding. Take protective control of unstable areas. Your father's enemies are circling, Wilson confirmed. With Teresa's execution and the debt situation, he looks weak, vulnerable. Luther looked at me. What do you want to do? The question surprised me. You're asking me? It's your father's kingdom. Your decision carries weight here. I studied the map, thinking. My father had failed me in every way that mattered. But innocent villagers didn't deserve to suffer for his mistakes. We help, I said finally. Send troops to secure the border, track down the mercenaries, show that the North backs the South's territorial integrity. That'll cost resources, Wilson warned, and we'll be protecting a kingdom that still owes us a significant debt. I know, I looked at Luther. But if we let the South collapse, the entire region destabilizes. That affects us too, eventually. Better to shore up the border now than fight a larger war later. Luther studied me for a long moment, then he nodded. Agreed. Wilson, mobilize a battalion. Kael leads them. Rules of engagement are clear. Defend the villages, hunt the mercenaries, but don't cross into Eastern territory proper. This is a defensive action only. Understood. Wilson rolled up the map. Your Majesty. Will you be joining the campaign? No, Luther said, surprising me. I'm staying here, with my wife. After Wilson left, I turned to Luther. You'd usually lead that yourself. Usually, I didn't have someone worth staying home for. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Let Kael have the glory. I have more important things here. Like strategic resource allocation? Exactly. He kissed me softly. Come on, let's get some sleep. I have a feeling tomorrow will be complicated. He was right about that, too. The messenger arrived just after dawn, interrupting our training. Nina brought him directly to the yard, which meant it was urgent. Your Majesty, the messenger bowed to Luther, then to me. A letter from the Eastern Kingdom, marked urgent. Luther broke the seal, read quickly. His expression darkened. What is it? I asked. And he handed me the letter. I scanned it, feeling cold seep into my bones. King Luther, it has come to our attention that your troops are mobilizing near our shared border. We must assume this is preparation for invasion. Unless you withdraw immediately and provide compensation for this threat, we will consider it an act of war. Additionally, we have credible intelligence that Queen Christina has been passing Southern secrets to you, violating neutrality agreements. We demand she be returned to Southern custody to face trial for treason. You have 3 days to comply. King Raphael of the Eastern Kingdom. This is insane, I said. We're defending against raiders, not invading. And I haven't violated any agreements. I'm sharing intelligence my father agreed to provide. Raphael knows that, Luther said grimly. This isn't about facts. It's about creating a pretext. For what? War. He took the letter back. He's been looking for an excuse to expand westward. Your father's weakness, your sister's execution, our marriage, it all gives him opportunities to paint us as aggressors. So we withdraw the troops? Let the villages burn? If we withdraw, we look weak. If we don't, he declares war. Luther's jaw tightened. Classic political trap. I thought fast. What if we invite him here? Face-to-face negotiation, neutral ground, witnesses from multiple kingdoms. Make it public so he can't twist our words. Wilson, who'd been listening from the edge of the yard, spoke up. That could work. Hard to claim someone's invading when they're actively seeking diplomatic resolution. Raphael might refuse, Luther said. Then he looks like the aggressor, I countered. Either way, we control the narrative. Luther looked at me with something like pride. You're good at this. I learned from the best. I squeezed his hand. Send the invitation. Let's see if Raphael has the courage to face us directly. That night, lying in bed, Luther pulled me close. I meant what I said earlier, he murmured into my hair. You're good at this. Strategy, politics, reading situations. You're a natural. I'm terrified I'll make the wrong call and people will die. That's what makes you good at it. His arms tightened around me. The moment you stop being afraid of that responsibility is the moment you become dangerous. Like Raphael. Like my father was. Like Teresa, I added quietly. Like Teresa, he agreed. But you'll never be like them. You care too much. Is that weakness? It's strength. He kissed the top of my head. The world has enough ruthless leaders who don't care about casualties. It needs more who do, who fight smart instead of just fighting. I turned in his arms, looking up at him in the darkness. Promise me something. Anything. If I ever start becoming like them, cold, calculating lives like numbers on a ledger, promise you'll tell me. Pull me back. I promise. He cupped my face. But I don't think you could become that if you tried. It's not in you. You don't know that. I do. His voice was absolutely certain. Because I've seen you at your worst. Betrayed, humiliated, angry. And even then, you chose justice over revenge. Mercy over cruelty. That's who you are. That's who you'll always be. Tears burned my eyes. How are you so sure? Because I know you. He kissed me softly, inside and out. Hey, and I love every part of what I see. I kissed him back, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. Gratitude, love, trust, hope. When we finally broke apart, breathless, he smiled against my lips. Sleep, my queen. Tomorrow we deal with Raphael. Tonight, we're just us. Just us. Two broken people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and somehow built something beautiful. I fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than I'd ever felt in my life. Whatever tomorrow brought, we'd face it together. Chapter 7. The night everything changed. Raphael arrived 3 days later with an entourage of 50 armed guards. The Eastern King was younger than I expected, perhaps 30, handsome in a sharp-featured way, with calculating gray eyes that missed nothing. He dismounted in Thornhold's courtyard with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a negotiation. King Luther, he said, inclining his head minimally. Thank you for the invitation. King Raphael. Luther's voice was cordial, but cold. Welcome to Thornhold. I trust your journey was uneventful. Quite. Raphael's gaze shifted to me. And you must be the infamous Queen Christina, the sister who condemned her own blood to execution. The courtyard went silent. Every warrior present tensed. I kept my expression neutral. I condemned a murderer to justice. That she happened to share my blood was unfortunate, but irrelevant. Raphael's eyebrow arched. How very northern of you. Tell me, does your father know you've become so ruthless? My father knows I do what's right, regardless of convenience. I stepped forward. Now, shall we discuss why you're really here, or would you prefer to trade insults in the courtyard like children? Luther made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Raphael's smile sharpened. Direct, I like that. Very well, Your Majesty. Shall we negotiate? The war room was tense. Raphael sat across from Luther and me, his advisors flanking him. Our own council, Wilson, Cale, Roger, formed a wall of intimidation behind us. Let's address the accusations, Luther said without preamble. You claim we're preparing to invade. We're not. We're defending villages from mercenary raiders. Mercenaries you probably hired, Raphael countered smoothly, to create a pretext for military presence. That's absurd, I said. Why would we destabilize our own allies' territory? To justify taking control of it. Raphael leaned back. Your father's kingdom is weak, drowning in debt. Everyone knows it. A convenient raid, a defensive response, and suddenly northern troops occupy southern land. It's practically textbook conquest. If we wanted to conquer the South, we wouldn't bother with mercenaries, Luther said flatly. We'd just invade. The North has never been subtle about territorial expansion. Raphael smiled. True, which is why your subtlety now is so suspicious. We were going in circles. What do you want? I asked directly. The real reason you're here. There's an angle you're working. What is it? Raphael studied me with renewed interest. Perceptive, very well. I want assurances. What kind of assurances? That the North won't expand southward, that your alliance with the Southern Kingdom won't threaten Eastern interests. He paused. And I want the intelligence sharing agreement between North and South dissolved. There it was, the real goal. You're afraid of what we might learn, I said. What secrets the Southern Network might uncover about your kingdom. Raphael's expression didn't change, but I saw the flash of confirmation in his eyes. I simply prefer balanced power, he said. Your combined intelligence capabilities create an asymmetry I find uncomfortable. Uncomfortable enough to threaten war? Luther asked. If necessary. Luther leaned forward. Here's my counteroffer. We maintain our defensive presence until the mercenary threat is neutralized. We continue our intelligence agreement with the South. And in exchange, his voice dropped dangerously, we share any intelligence we gather about eastern border movements with you as well. Raphael blinked. He hadn't expected that. You'd share intelligence with me? After I threatened you? I'd rather have transparent cooperation than hostile uncertainty, Luther said. If we all know what everyone else is doing, there's less room for misunderstanding, less excuse for conflict. And if I refuse? Then you make it very clear that you want conflict, I interjected. That this was never about legitimate concerns, just territorial ambition. Raphael looked between us, reassessing. You're offering me exactly what I claim to want. Which makes me wonder what you're not telling me. We're not telling you anything, Luther said. That's the point. Total transparency. All border movements, all troop deployments, all significant intelligence, shared among all three kingdoms. That's unprecedented, one of Raphael's advisors whispered. It's also smart, Wilson added from behind us. Reduces the chance of accidental war. Everyone benefits. Raphael was quiet for a long moment. I could see him working through the angles, looking for the trap. Finally, he nodded slowly. I accept, with conditions. Name them, Luther said. The intelligence sharing includes military capabilities, troop numbers, fortifications, supply lines, full disclosure. Agreed. All three kingdoms contribute analysts to verify accuracy, and no one kingdom controls the information flow. Reasonable, I said. And Raphael looked directly at me. Queen Christina personally oversees the southern contribution. I want someone I know won't falsify reports to protect her father. That was actually a compliment, in a twisted way. Agreed, I said. Anything else? Just one thing. Raphael stood, extending his hand to Luther. Don't make me regret trusting you. Luther stood as well, taking the offered hand. If you honor this agreement, you won't. They shook. The tension in the room deflated like a released breath. Well, Raphael said, almost cheerful now. That was surprisingly productive. I expected to be at war by dinner. The night's still young, Kyle muttered. Raphael laughed. I like your people, Luther. Honest about their violence. It's refreshing. He turned to me. Oh, and you, Your Majesty, your father raised a fool of a daughter in Teresa, but he got it right with you. My father had very little to do with who I became, I said coolly. Clearly. Raphael moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The mercenaries who raided those villages? My intelligence suggests they came from the Western Territories. Someone there wants both our kingdoms distracted while they make moves of their own. Luther's expression darkened. You have proof? I'll send everything I have. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Raphael smiled. See? Transparency already paying dividends. After he left, I sagged against the table. That was exhausting, I breathed. That was brilliant, Luther corrected. He pulled me into his arms right there in front of the council. You read him perfectly, and knew exactly when to push and when to offer compromise. We both did, I said into his chest. The unified front helped, Wilson observed. Raphael couldn't play you against each other, couldn't find division to exploit. Because there isn't any, Luther said simply. Kyle cleared his throat. If you two are finished being disgustingly in love, we have work to do. Those mercenaries need hunting. Go, Luther said. Christina and I will handle the diplomatic follow-up. The council filed out, leaving us alone. Disgustingly in love, I repeated, smiling. Is that what we are? Apparently. Luther cupped my face. Does it bother you? The public displays? No. I covered his hands with mine. I like it. Knowing everyone can see we're a united front, that we choose each other. Good. He kissed me softly. Yeah, because I'm done hiding how I feel about you. The kiss deepened, became urgent. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. I pressed closer, wanting Nina's voice from the doorway. Your Majesties, dinner is ready. We broke apart, breathing hard. Worst timing, Luther muttered. Best timing, I corrected, straightening my clothes. Before we scandalized the staff. I'm the king. I can scandalize whoever I want. And I'm the queen. I have standards to maintain. But I was smiling. We made it through dinner with appropriate decorum, though Luther's hand stayed on my thigh under the table the entire time, thumb tracing lazy circles that made concentration difficult. Finally, we retreated to our chambers. The moment the door closed, Luther had me against it, kissing me with an intensity that stole my breath. "Yeah, I've been wanting to do this all day," he murmured against my neck. "We kissed in the war room. Not enough." His hands found the laces of my dress. "Never enough." I should have been nervous. We'd shared a bed for weeks now, but always clothed, always careful about boundaries. But I wasn't nervous. I was ready. "Luther," I whispered. He pulled back, searching my face. "Say it. Whatever you're thinking." "I want this. Want you. All of you." His eyes darkened. "Are you sure? Because once I start, I'm sure." I pulled him back to me. "I love you. I choose you. Show me." Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. "Mine," he breathed. "Yours," I agreed. He carried me to the bed, laid me down with surprising gentleness, then proceeded to worship every inch of skin he revealed as clothing disappeared. His hands were reverent, mapping me like I was precious. His mouth followed, pressing kisses to my collarbone, my ribs, the curve of my hip. "Beautiful," he murmured. "So damn beautiful." When he finally moved over me, settling between my thighs, he paused. "Last chance to change your mind." "Luther, stop being noble and love me already." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Yes, my queen." The first slow press of him inside me was perfect, complete, like coming home and falling apart at the same time. He moved carefully at first, watching my face, making sure I was with him. But when I arched up, nails raking down his back, his control fractured. The careful worship became desperate, claiming. His mouth on my throat, teeth grazing my pulse point in a way that made my wolf sing. The rhythm built, devastating and perfect, until I shattered around him with his name on my lips. He followed moments later, burying his face in my neck, holding me like I might disappear. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his weight a comfort rather than a burden. "Mine," he whispered again, pressing a kiss to my temple. "My queen, my mate, my everything." I felt it then, the bond snapping into place fully. Not just emotional, but supernatural. The mate bond completing, tying us together on every level. His eyes widened. "You feel that?" "Yes." I touched his face, feeling the connection pulse between us. "We're bonded, truly bonded now." "No going back," he said, but he was smiling. "I don't want to go back." I kissed him softly. "Forward, always forward, together." "Together," he agreed. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, the bond humming contentedly between us. And I woke the next morning to Luther tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "Good morning," he murmured. "Morning." I stretched, pleasantly sore. "How long have you been awake?" "About an hour. I didn't want to move. You looked peaceful." I turned to face him properly. In the morning light, he looked younger. Less ruthless king, more just Luther, my husband, my mate. "I love you," I said. "I know." He grinned. I could feel it through the bond last night. Still can, actually. It's overwhelming, I suggested. Perfect. He pulled me closer. "I can feel what you feel. Know when you're happy or sad or angry. It's like having a part of you living inside me. Does it bother you?" "Not even a little." He kissed my nose, though it's going to make hiding surprise gifts very difficult. I laughed. "I'll try to not peek at your thoughts." "Please don't."
Some things in here would scandalize even you. Now I'm curious. Curiosity killed the queen, but satisfaction brought her back. We dissolved into laughter, trading kisses between giggles like we had all the time in the world. A sharp knock interrupted us. "Your Majesties," Nina called. "Urgent message from the Southern Kingdom." Luther groaned. "Can the South go 1 week without a crisis?" Apparently not. I sat up, reaching for my robe. "Come in, Nina." She entered, carefully not looking at the very obvious state of the bed. "Messenger just arrived. Your father requests your immediate return." Ice flooded my veins. "Why?" He didn't say, but the messenger emphasized immediate multiple times. Luther was already dressing. "Could be a trap. Raphael might have allies in your father's court. Or it could be genuine emergency." I pulled on clothes quickly. "Either way, we need to know." "We're going together," Luther said firmly. "I'm not letting you walk into potential danger alone." "I wouldn't dream of going without you." We assembled a full guard within the hour and rode south. Whatever waited for us, we'd face it together. Bonded, united, unbreakable. Chapter 8. When the baby almost died. We reached the Southern Kingdom by nightfall, pushing the horses hard. Something was wrong. I felt it before we even crossed the border, a wrongness humming through the mate bond, Luther's tension bleeding into me. "You feel it too," he said quietly. "Yes. Whatever this is, it's bad." The palace looked the same from the outside, but the guards at the gate were different, harder. Eastern uniforms mixed with Southern ones. "Raphael's men," Wilson observed from behind us. He moved fast. "He moved before we even left Thornhold," Luther said grimly. "This was planned." We were escorted not to the throne room, but to my father's private chambers. He looked 10 years older than when I'd seen him weeks ago, seated in a chair with his leg bandaged. "Christina," he breathed. "Thank God you came." "What happened?" I knelt beside him, examining the wound. It was poorly wrapped, already showing signs of infection. "Raphael happened." My father's voice was bitter. "The moment you left, his troops moved in. He claimed it was protective occupation to prevent northern aggression. My own guards couldn't stop them. We're too weak, too few." "The mercenary raids," I said, understanding. "They were his all along. Weakening your defenses, giving him an excuse." "It was a setup from the beginning," Luther finished. "The entire negotiation in Thornhold. He was stalling, buying time for his forces to move." "We walked right into it," Wilson said. "No." I stood, anger building. "He walked into our trap. He thinks he's won, but he just committed an act of war in front of witnesses. Broke a treaty he signed 3 days ago." "What witnesses?" my father asked weakly. "His men control the palace. Anyone who protests disappears." "Not for long." I looked at Luther. "Call the Northern Army, all of it." Luther's eyes gleamed. "You want war?" "I want Raphael to realize he made a very expensive mistake." I turned to Wilson. "Send word to every kingdom on the continent. Eastern troops invaded southern territory under false pretenses, violated a signed treaty, and are occupying a sovereign kingdom against the ruler's will. Ask for emergency council." "That's..." Wilson paused, impressed. "That's brilliant. If we move quickly enough, Raphael becomes an international pariah," I finished. "Every kingdom will demand he withdraw or face collective action." "He has hostages," my father said quietly. "Your mother, courtiers, servants." "And if you attack..." "We're not attacking." Luther's smile was sharp. "We're liberating. There's a difference." We moved that night. Not with the full army, that would take days to mobilize, but with what we had, 200 northern warriors trained for exactly this kind of operation. "Hostage rescue," Luther briefed them in the camp outside the palace walls. "Non-lethal force where possible, but priority is getting innocents out. Anyone who fights back gets put down. Clear?" Grunts of acknowledgement. "My mother is in the East Tower," I said, pointing to the map. "Most courtiers will be in the Great Hall under guard, servants in the lower levels." 3 teams, Kyle said. "Roger takes the tower, Wilson the hall, I take the lower levels."
What about the king and queen? Someone asked. We're going for Raphael, Luther said.
Directly.
Your Majesties, that's... Wilson started.
The only way this ends quickly, I interrupted. Raphael wants me, thinks I'm his leverage against Luther. We use that. Luther looked at me, concern flickering through the bond.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I checked my weapons. Luther had insisted I carry them now, had trained me specifically for this. He thinks I'm a soft southern princess playing at being northern. Let's show him exactly how wrong he is. We entered through the servant passages. Tunnels my father had told us about, forgotten by everyone except the oldest staff. The palace was eerily quiet. Eastern guards patrolled in pairs, confident in their control. They never saw us coming. Luther moved like death itself, silent, efficient, brutal when necessary. I followed, trying to emulate that lethal grace. When a guard rounded a corner unexpectedly, I reacted on instinct, knife to his throat, hand over his mouth, exactly as Luther had drilled into me. The man went down without a sound. Luther's pride pulsed through the bond. Well done. Thank you. Now let's keep moving. We found Raphael in my father's war room, reviewing maps with his commanders. Overconfident. Comfortable. Luther kicked the door open. Raphael's head snapped up, shock crossing his face before he masked it. King Luther! Queen Christina! What a surprise! Is it? Luther asked mildly. You invaded our allies' kingdom. Did you think we wouldn't respond? I liberated an unstable territory, Raphael corrected. Your father was clearly unable to maintain order. My father was weakened by mercenaries you hired, I interrupted. Don't insult us by pretending otherwise. Raphael's jaw tightened. Prove it. We don't need to prove it to you, Luther said. We just need to prove it to the Continental Council, which we did about 4 hours ago. Messengers are currently riding to every major kingdom with evidence of your treaty violation. Raphael went pale. You can't... Already done, Wilson said, emerging from the shadows with Roger and Cale. Behind them, freed hostages filed into the room. My mother, courtiers, servants, all safe. Hostages are secured, Cale reported. Eastern guards are disarmed. Your occupation is over, Raphael. Raphael looked around wildly, calculating. Then his hand shot out, grabbing a knife from the table and lunging. Not at Luther, at me. I saw it coming through Luther's eyes via the bond. It felt his horror spike a split second before my own training kicked in. I twisted sideways, the blade grazing my ribs instead of plunging into my heart. Pain flared, but I ignored it, grabbing Raphael's wrist and using his momentum to flip him over my shoulder. He hit the ground hard. I knelt on his chest, my own knife at his throat. You just tried to murder a queen in front of 24 witnesses, I said calmly, though my hands were shaking. That's execution-worthy in every kingdom on the continent. Christina, Raphael gasped. No. I pressed the blade just hard enough to draw blood. You don't get to use my name. You don't get to negotiate. You played your game and you lost. Luther was beside me, his hand on my shoulder, steadying, supporting. Your choice, my queen. His fate is yours to decide. I looked at Raphael, this man who'd tried to start a war, who'd held innocents hostage, who'd just tried to kill me. You have 2 options, I said. 1, face formal trial before the Continental Council. They'll execute you publicly for treaty violation and attempted regicide. Raphael's eyes widened. 2, abdicate, immediately. Name your heir. Renounce all claims to occupied territories and live out your life in exile. No trial, no execution. Just gone. You would spare me? He sounded shocked. I would spare your kingdom a succession crisis, I corrected. Your people don't deserve to suffer because their king was an ambitious fool. But you? You deserve nothing. Luther's approval hummed through the bond. Raphael looked between us, trapped and defeated. Abdication, he whispered finally. I choose exile. Smart choice.
I stood, pulling him up roughly. Wilson, witness this. Raphael signed the abdication papers with shaking hands. His commanders watched in silence, knowing they'd been outmaneuvered completely. Your son inherits, I said, checking the documents. He's, what, 8 years old? 9, Raphael said hollowly. Then his regent better be someone who understands the cost of breaking treaties. I looked at his commanders. I suggest you choose wisely. They nodded, pale-faced. Within the hour, Raphael was gone, escorted to the border under guard, never to return. His troops withdrew, retreating to the Eastern Kingdom in disarray. The Southern Kingdom was free again. My father found me on the battlements as dawn broke, watching the last Eastern soldiers disappear over the horizon. You saved my kingdom, he said quietly. I protected innocent people, I corrected. There's a difference. Christina, don't. I turned to him. Don't apologize, don't explain. Just do better. Be the king your people deserve, not the one who covers up murders and makes deals with ambitious tyrants. He flinched but nodded. You've become someone I don't recognize. Good, I said flatly. The person you knew was weak. Let herself be walked over. That person died the day Teresa stole my wedding. I'm proud of you, he said. I know I have no right to be, but... You're right, you don't. I softened slightly. But maybe someday you'll earn the right, if you work at it. He nodded, understanding this was the best he'd get. Luther appeared at my side, slipping his arm around my waist. We should head home soon. Your rib needs proper treatment. I'd almost forgotten the knife wound. Now that he mentioned it, pain flared hot. I'm fine, I started. You're bleeding through your shirt, Luther said. We're getting you to a healer. Now. Bossy, I muttered. Concerned, he corrected. There's a difference. My father cleared his throat. Before you go, thank you, both of you, for what you did here. Luther nodded curtly. Protect your kingdom better. We won't always be here to save it. We rode out an hour later, the wound cleaned and bandaged properly. It would scar, my first battle scar. How does it feel? Luther asked as we rode. Having your first real injury from combat? Painful, I admitted. But also, I don't know. Real? Like proof I actually fought instead of just talking about it. You did more than fight, he said. You commanded. That those warriors followed your plan without question. Raphael surrendered to you, not me. You ended that conflict with strategy and courage. Pride swelled in my chest. Not just my own, but his too, flowing through the bond. We make a good team, I said. The best. He reached over, linking his fingers with mine. My warrior queen. Your only queen, I corrected. My only queen, he agreed, smiling. We were 2 days from home when the pain hit. Not in my ribs. Lower, deep in my abdomen, sharp and wrong. I gasped, nearly falling from my horse. Luther caught me instantly, pulling me onto his mount. What's wrong? I don't know. It just... Another spike of pain made me cry out. Healer, Luther shouted. Now! The northern healer we'd brought examined me quickly, her expression growing concerned. Your Majesty, she said carefully, when was your last cycle? I tried to think through the pain. 6 weeks? Maybe 7? I've been stressed. It's been irregular. Her expression shifted to understanding and alarm. You're pregnant, Your Majesty, and you're bleeding. We need to get you somewhere stable immediately, or you could lose the child. Pregnant. The word echoed through my mind as Luther went white. How far? He demanded. Very early, maybe 5 weeks. But the stress, the fighting, the injury, it's too much. She needs rest, now. Luther looked at me, fear naked in his eyes. Hold on, he said. Just hold on. He spurred the horse forward, cradling me against his chest. The pain built with each stride, but I clung to consciousness.
A baby. We were having a baby. I couldn't lose this piece of us before it even had a chance. Please, and I thought desperately, please let our baby survive. Luther's panic crashed through the bond, but his hands were steady, his voice calm as he called orders, demanded we ride faster. "I've got you," he murmured against my hair. "Both of you. I've got you." I closed my eyes and let him carry us home. Chapter 9. 2 crowns, 1 queen. I woke to darkness and Luther's hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt. "Luther." My voice came out hoarse. His head snapped up. In the dim firelight, I could see his face, haggard, exhausted, tear-streaked. "You're awake," he breathed. "Thank God you're awake." "The baby!" Panic clawed at my chest. "Still there!" He pressed his other hand to my stomach gently. "The healer saved you both. But it was close, Christina. So close." Relief made me dizzy. "How long have I been asleep?" 3 days. You lost a lot of blood. The wound in your ribs got infected, and combined with the pregnancy stress, his voice cracked. I thought I was going to lose you." I pulled his hand to my lips, kissing his knuckles. "I'm here. We're here. Both of us." "You have to rest," Luther said urgently. "Now complete bed rest for at least 2 weeks. No training, no council meetings, no stress." The healer was very clear. "One more incident like that and we will lose the baby." "I'll rest," I promised. "I'll do whatever it takes." "Good." He climbed into the bed beside me carefully, wrapping around me like a shield. "Because I can't do this without you. Can't be king, can't breathe, can't exist without you." "You won't have to," I whispered into his chest. "I'm not going anywhere." We lay like that for a long time, his hand protective over my stomach, feeling the fragile life growing there. "Boy or girl?" he asked quietly. "I don't know yet. Too early." "I hope they have your courage," Luther said. "Your strength, your kindness." "I hope they have your laugh," I countered. "Your loyalty. Oh, your protective streak." "They're going to be amazing," he said with certainty. "Terrifying, probably, but amazing." I laughed softly, then winced as it pulled at my ribs. "No laughing either," Luther said sternly. "Strictly enforced no-fun policy until you heal." "You're ridiculous." "I'm in love." He kissed my forehead. "Makes a man ridiculous." The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Luther took enforced bed rest very seriously. Nina brought all my meals. Council meetings happened in our chambers with me propped up on pillows. I was allowed to read, write letters, and do absolutely nothing else. "I'm going to lose my mind," I complained on day 5. "Better than losing the baby," Luther said without looking up from his reports. I could at least sit in a chair, walk to the window. Healer said bed rest. "A bed means bed." "You're enjoying this," I accused, "having me trapped and immobile." He finally looked up, grinning. "I'm enjoying knowing you and our child are safe. The immobility is just a bonus." I threw a pillow at him. He caught it easily, laughing. "Is that allowed under bed rest?" "Violence is always allowed," I said primly. "It's cardio that's forbidden." Despite the restrictions, Luther made sure I wasn't bored. He brought me books from the library, read reports aloud so I could weigh in on decisions, and every evening shared stories about his day. Kyle visited with tactical problems he needed my input on. Wilson brought intelligence reports for my analysis. Even Roger stopped by, awkwardly offering a carved wooden wolf for the baby. "You made this?" I asked, touched. "Northern tradition," he grunted. "Any first gift to an unborn child should be something to protect them. Wolves protect." "It's beautiful. Thank you." He fled before I could get emotional about it. By the second week, the bleeding had stopped completely. The healer examined me and declared the pregnancy stable. "The danger has passed," she said, "but your Majesty still needs to be careful. No combat training, no heavy lifting, no excessive stress." "For how long?" I asked. "Until the baby is born." She smiled at my expression. "You're growing a future heir to 2 kingdoms. Some restrictions are worth it." Luther looked smug. You heard the healer. I hate you, I muttered. You love me. He kissed me thoroughly. And I love you, and our stubborn child who's already causing problems before they're even born. News of my pregnancy spread through both kingdoms within days, and letters of congratulations arrived from everywhere, including one from my father that was surprisingly genuine in its warmth. My mother sent baby clothes she'd embroidered herself, each piece more elaborate than the last. Even Raphael's young heir sent a letter from the Eastern Kingdom, apologizing for his father's actions and congratulating us on the upcoming birth. The whole continent knows, I said, reading the latest batch of correspondence. Good, Luther said. Let them know the North has secured its succession. Makes us stronger politically. Is that all this baby is to you? Political advantage? He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. This baby is everything to me. The politics are just a bonus. He knelt beside the bed, pressing his hand to my slightly rounded stomach. This is our child. Oh, proof that something good can come from terrible beginnings, that love can grow in the darkest places. Tears burned my eyes. Damn pregnancy emotions. I love your pregnancy emotions, Luther said, wiping my cheeks gently. You cried yesterday because a puppy in the courtyard was too fluffy to exist. It was adorable. I hate you, I said again, but I was smiling. Sure you do. He kissed my stomach. Hear that, little one? Your mother hates me. Better get used to it. The baby kicked, the first time I'd felt it move. We both froze. Was that? Luther's eyes were wide. Yes. I grabbed his hand, pressing it where I'd felt the flutter. That was our baby. We waited breathlessly. Another kick, stronger this time, right against Luther's palm. His expression crumbled. They're real, he whispered. I mean, I knew they were real. But now they're real, I finished, understanding completely. He rested his forehead against my stomach, and I heard him whisper, I'm going to protect you. Both of you. Nothing will ever hurt you while I'm alive. Through the bond, I felt his love, fierce and absolute and terrifying in its intensity. This man who'd been called ruthless, brutal, merciless. This man who was going to be a father. They're lucky to have you, I said. They're lucky to have us, he corrected. 6 months later, my coronation day arrived. We'd postponed it until after the baby was born. A girl, tiny and perfect, with Luther's black hair and my green eyes. We'd named her Elise, after Luther's mother. Now, at 3 months old, she slept peacefully in Nina's arms at the edge of the throne room while I prepared for the ceremony that would make me officially queen consort of the Northern Kingdom. You ready? Luther asked, offering his arm. I took it, feeling the weight of the crown that would soon be placed on my head. Not the temporary one I'd worn to the south, but the true Northern Queen's crown, black steel and diamonds, heavy with history. I'm ready, I said. We walked into the throne room together. Every pack leader in the north had gathered, along with representatives from the south and even the Eastern Kingdom. The same room where I'd arrived months ago as a stranger was now filled with people who'd seen me fight, lead, and earn my place. The high priest stepped forward. Who presents this woman for coronation? I do, Luther said. Am King Luther of the Northern Territories. She has proven herself through courage in battle, wisdom in council, and strength in the face of adversity. She has earned the right to stand as queen. Who speaks for her character? The priest asked. I do. Kael stepped forward. She faced down an Eastern king and won. She leads with both strength and mercy. She is worthy. I do, Wilson added. She negotiated peace when war seemed certain. She sees patterns others miss. She is worthy. I do, Roger said simply. She protects her people. She is worthy. One by one, the pack leaders stepped forward. Each one testified. Some to battles I'd fought, others to decisions I'd made, a few to simple acts of kindness that had meant more than I'd realized. By the time they finished, tears were streaming down my face. Christina, the priest said, and his use of my chosen name rather than my birth name felt significant. You came to us as a stranger.
You have become one of us through blood, sweat, and tears. Do you swear to protect this kingdom and its people with your life? I do. Do you swear to lead with wisdom, courage, and justice? I do. Do you swear to stand beside your king now and always as equal partners in all things? I do. I looked at Luther, saw his love reflected back at me. The priest lifted the crown. Then by the power vested in me, by the approval of the assembled pack leaders, and by the will of the Northern Kingdom, he placed the crown on my head, the weight settled, solid and right. I name you Queen Christina of the Northern Territories. May your reign be long and just. The throne room erupted in cheers. Luther pulled me into his arms, kissing me thoroughly despite the audience. My queen, he murmured. My only queen. Your only queen, I agreed. Elise chose that moment to wail, and the formal ceremony dissolved as Nina brought her forward. I took my daughter, settling her against my shoulder, and she quieted immediately. She knows her mother, Luther said softly, touching Elise's tiny hand. She knows she's safe, I corrected. We stood there, king, queen, and princess, and I realized how far I'd come. From abandoned bride to warrior queen, from humiliated sister to mother and ruler. What are you thinking? Luther asked. That Teresa would hate this, I admitted. Seeing me here, happy, powerful, everything she tried to take from me. Do you think about her often? Less now. I looked at our daughter, at this perfect life we'd built. She's just at a chapter that's closed. She made her choices. I made mine. And yours led here, Luther said. To us. To us, I agreed. That evening, after the celebrations, we stood on the battlements watching stars appear over the northern mountains. I have something for you, Luther said, pulling out a small box. Inside was a ring, black diamond to match my wedding band, but carved with intricate wolves running in an endless circle. The pack, Luther said as he slid it onto my finger. You're not just my queen. You're theirs. They chose you. This is their gift. It's beautiful, I whispered. You're beautiful. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. My warrior queen who was forged in fire and came out stronger. Our daughter's crying, I said, hearing Elise's wail through the open window of our chambers. She has excellent timing, Luther sighed. Always right when we're having a moment. We went inside together, taking turns soothing Elise until she settled. Luther held her, swaying gently, singing an old northern lullaby about wolves and winter. I watched them, my ruthless king reduced to mush by a 3-month-old, and felt my heart overflow. I love you, I said. He looked up, smiling. I know. I can feel it through the bond. It's like living in perpetual sunshine. You're ridiculous. I'm in love, he corrected. Makes a man ridiculous. Elise yawned, tiny fist curling against Luther's chest. He settled into the rocking chair Nina had brought, continuing the lullaby. I joined them, curling into his side, our daughter between us. This was my family, my home, my life, and I'd fight anyone who tried to take it from me. And a knock on the door interrupted the peaceful moment. Wilson entered, looking apologetic. I'm sorry, but this just arrived. Marked urgent. Luther took the letter, his expression darkening as he read. What is it? I asked. Your father. He's calling a continental council, wants to formalize the intelligence sharing agreement into an actual treaty, and, he paused, he's proposing a formal alliance, north, south, and east, to prevent what Raphael tried from ever happening again. That's actually smart, I said, surprised. Your influence, probably. Luther handed me the letter. He's learned from watching you. What do you think? I asked. Should we agree? I think... Luther looked at Elise sleeping peacefully. I think we should, for her. So she grows up in a world with fewer wars, fewer power-hungry tyrants. A better world, I said softly. A better world, he agreed. And if your father is finally ready to help build that, then yes, we should support him. I nodded, already composing my response in my head. Later, after Elise was settled in her cradle, Luther and I lay in bed together. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "That day at the altar, marrying me instead of running." "Not once," I said immediately. "You? Marrying you was the best decision I ever made." He kissed my forehead. "Even if you did stab a knife between Kyle's fingers during our first meal together." "That's probably why it was the best decision," I pointed out. He laughed. "Fair point." We fell asleep tangled together, the bond humming contentedly between us. And for the first time in my life, I fell asleep without fear. Had it because I was home, truly finally home. Chapter 10. The day she walked in. 3 years later. "Mama! Mama!" I looked up from the treaty documents spread across my desk to see Elise barreling into my study, dark hair flying behind her like a banner. At 3 years old, she was pure chaos wrapped in a tiny package. Luther's stubbornness combined with my determination, which meant she was absolutely unstoppable. "What is it, little wolf?" I asked, scooping her up. "Papa said I can't climb the battlement walls because I'm too small, but I'm not too small. I climbed them yesterday and he didn't even notice." "You climbed the battlements?" I tried to sound stern, but failed miserably. "Elise, those are dangerous." "But I didn't fall," she said reasonably. "And Uncle Kyle said I have good balance for a pup." "Uncle Kyle is going to get a lecture," I muttered. Luther appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "There you are. I turned my back for 2 seconds. She climbed the battlements yesterday," I said. His eyes widened. "What?" "I told you I wasn't too small," Elise said triumphantly. Luther pinched the bridge of his nose. "You're not too small. You're too young. There's a difference." "That's what Mama said about combat training, but she started when she was my age." "Your mother started combat training at 23, Luther corrected. "That's basically the same," Elise said with the confidence of a 3-year-old who'd just learned numbers. I caught Luther's eye over her head. He looked exhausted and exasperated, and so full of love it made my chest ache. "How about this?" I said diplomatically. "You can climb the battlements when you turn 4. But only with Papa supervising." "I'll be 4 in 3 whole months," Elise protested. "Then 3 whole months of not climbing dangerously high walls," Luther said. "Come on, Terror. Let's go practice your letters before you give your mother a heart attack." "Reading is boring. Reading is how you learn battle strategy," he countered. "Can't be a warrior queen if you can't read." That got her attention. "Really? Really? Come on." He carried her out, still arguing about whether reading was necessary for climbing things. I heard Elise's voice fade down the corridor. "But Uncle Kale said knowing how to fall is more important than reading." "I'm demoting Kale," Luther called back. I laughed, shaking my head, and returned to the treaties. The Continental Alliance had been formalized 2 years ago. North, South, and an East now shared intelligence, coordinated border defenses, and met quarterly to address regional concerns. It wasn't perfect. Old tensions still flared occasionally, but it was holding. More importantly, it was working. Trade had increased. Conflicts were resolved through diplomacy rather than violence. The kingdoms were more stable than they'd been in generations, and I'd had a hand in building it. A knock interrupted my reading. Wilson entered with his usual efficiency. "Your Majesty, the Southern delegation has arrived. Your father requests an audience." I glanced at the clock. Right on time. "Send him in." My father entered, and I was struck again by how much he'd aged. He was in his 60s now, gray-haired and moving slowly, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in years, focused. "Christina," he greeted me formally. Thank you for seeing me." "Of course. Please sit." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "How was your journey?" "Long but uneventful." He settled into the chair with a slight wince. "My joints aren't what they used to be." "You should consider retiring soon," I said carefully. "Let the next generation take over." "That's actually what I wanted to discuss." He pulled out a document. "I'm abdicating. Officially. At the end of this year.
I stared. What? Why?
Because I'm tired, Christina. And because I've realized I'm not the king my people need anymore. The world has changed. I need to let someone younger, sharper, more connected to these new alliances take over.
Who's your heir? I thought. I stopped. My brother had died in childhood. Teresa was executed. Which meant,
you, my father said quietly. Oh, you're the rightful heir to the Southern Kingdom.
No, I pushed the document back across the desk.
Absolutely not. I'm Queen of the North. I can't rule two kingdoms. You wouldn't have to rule both. You'd unite them. His voice was urgent now. A formal alliance with you as the bridge. The Southern Kingdom would become a protectorate of the North, autonomous but aligned. You'd oversee both, but delegate the daily governance.
I stopped, mind racing through the implications. That's unprecedented.
So is everything you've done, my father said. You married the North's most ruthless king and turned him into a devoted husband. You testified against your own sister to seek justice. You defeated an Eastern invasion through strategy and courage. You built an alliance that's kept peace for 2 years. He leaned forward. You're the only person both kingdoms trust absolutely. The only one who could make this work.
I need to discuss this with Luther, I said.
Of course. Take all the time you need. But Christina, his voice softened. I know I failed you. As a father, as a king, as a protector. I let Teresa become a monster. I covered up her crimes. I chose politics over my daughter's happiness.
Yes, I said simply.
You did. I can't undo that, but I can try to make it right. He touched the document. Let me give you this. Let me help you build something better than what I created. Please.
I looked at him. This man who'd hurt me so deeply, who was finally trying to do the right thing.
I'll discuss it with Luther, I said again, and with the council. This isn't a decision I can make alone. He nodded, standing slowly. Thank you for considering it. That's more than I deserve. After he left, I sat staring at the abdication document for a long time. Queen of two kingdoms. It should have felt overwhelming, terrifying. Instead, it felt right. That evening, I told Luther everything. We were in our chambers, Elise asleep in her room next door. I'd just finished feeding our son, little Jonathan, 4 months old, named for Luther's lost brother. He nursed contentedly while I explained my father's proposal. Luther listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. What do you think? I asked when I finished. I think... He paused, choosing words carefully. I think you'd be brilliant at it. You already coordinate intelligence between both kingdoms. You mediate disputes. You understand both northern and southern politics. But it's a lot of responsibility. 2 kingdoms, 2 children, council meetings, treaties, potential conflicts. He touched Jonathan's tiny hand. I worry about you taking on too much. I'd have help, I said. Your council, my father's advisors, and you. Always me, he said immediately. But Christina, you need to want this. Not just because your father's asking, or because it's politically convenient, you need to want it. I looked down at Jonathan, then toward Elise's room where she slept. I want them to grow up in a world where kingdoms work together instead of fighting, I said slowly. Where siblings don't betray each other for power, where justice matters more than politics. And you think you can build that? I think I can try. I met his eyes. With you beside me. He smiled. Then we do it. Together. It'll be hard, I warned. Complicated. There will be people who resist, who want to maintain old divisions. There are always people like that, Luther interrupted. But there are also people like you, like us, who see what could be and refuse to accept what is. He took Jonathan from me, cradling our son with practiced ease. Besides, if our children are going to terrorize the battlements, they might as well rule while they're at it. I laughed. That's your criteria? Whether our children can multitask their chaos? It's as good as any. He kissed Jonathan's head, then mine. You have my support. Always. The announcement came 3 months later. The throne room was packed, both northern and southern nobility, and along with eastern representatives and ambassadors from kingdoms across the continent, my father stood beside Luther and me, looking smaller somehow, humbled. I, King Samuel of the Southern Kingdom, do hereby abdicate my throne, he said formally, and name as my heir and successor Queen Christina of the Northern Kingdom. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Furthermore, my father continued, I propose a formal unification of the Northern and Southern Kingdoms under dual sovereignty. Queen Christina and King Luther will rule jointly, with autonomous councils maintaining regional governance, but united foreign policy and defense. This is unprecedented, someone called out. So was the Continental Alliance, I replied, stepping forward. So was ending centuries of conflict through cooperation instead of conquest. Unprecedented doesn't mean impossible. You're asking us to trust a northern queen with southern interests, another voice challenged. I'm not asking, I said calmly. I'm offering. A choice. Remain separate and vulnerable to external threats, like what Raphael attempted, or unite, pool our resources, and become stronger together. And if we refuse, the same voice demanded, then you choose your own path, Luther said. We won't force this, but understand, the North will honor its alliance commitments regardless. The question is whether you want to be equal partners or just allies of convenience. Silence fell. Finally, Lord Nathaniel, one of the most influential Southern nobles, stepped forward. I knew you as a child, Your Majesty, he said to me. Watched you grow up trying to be everything your family needed. Watched you endure Teresa's cruelty with grace. Watched you be abandoned at that altar. He paused. I also watched you transform into someone who testifies against murderers regardless of blood, who negotiates peace under threat of war, who builds alliances instead of conquest. He knelt. You are not just Northern, not just Southern. You are the bridge between them. I support this unification, and I pledge my loyalty to you, Queen Christina of the North and South. One by one, nobles knelt. Not all of them. Some remained standing, skeptical or opposed, but enough, more than enough. When the last had knelt, my father approached me. The crown is yours, he said quietly. Use it well. He placed the southern crown on my head beside the northern one. The weight should have been crushing. Instead, it felt balanced. Right. Yo Luther took my hand, squeezing once. Pride and love pulsed through the bond. Long live Queen Christina, Nathaniel called out. Queen of the North and South, protector of the realm. Long live the Queen, the throne room echoed. I looked out at the assembled crowd, northern wolves and southern nobles standing together, allies and former enemies united. This was my legacy, not the abandoned bride, not the murdered sister's memory, not the political pawn traded for debts, the queen who built bridges instead of walls. 5 years later. Mama, Jonathan hit me. Did not. She hit me first. Mama! I looked up from the council reports I was reviewing to see my children tumbling into my study in a tangle of limbs and accusations. Elise, now 8, had Jonathan 6 in a headlock. Behind them, Aunt's little Theo, 3 years old and already showing signs of being just as chaotic as his siblings, toddled in cheerfully. Report, I said in my best commander voice. They froze, still tangled together. Jonathan said I throw like a girl, Elise said indignantly. You do throw like a girl, Jonathan protested, because you are a girl. Being a girl doesn't mean throwing badly. I didn't say you throw badly. I said you throw like a... Enough! Luther's voice boomed from the doorway. All 3 children snapped to attention. He surveyed the scene with the same tactical assessment he used for battle planning. Elise, girls can throw just fine. Your mother once threw a knife that saved my life. Jonathan, stop antagonizing your sister. Theo, stop eating the curtains. Theo, who had indeed been chewing on the fabric, looked guilty. You all 3 of you, training yard. Now, We're doing obstacle courses until you remember how to get along." "But Papa," they chorused, "now!" They fled, still arguing but at least moving in the right direction. Luther shook his head, collapsing into the chair across from me. "How do they have this much energy? Where does it come from?" "Your genetics," I said sweetly. "You're the one who insisted on 3 children." "I recall you being equally enthusiastic," he countered, "especially about the process of creating them." I threw a cushion at him. He caught it, grinning. "Council meeting in an hour," I reminded him. "We need to discuss the Western Territory trade proposals." "I know. I read the briefing." He stood, moving around my desk to kiss me. "But first, I'm going to tire out our tiny terrors so they don't interrupt another council meeting by releasing chickens in the throne room." That was one time. One time was enough. He kissed me again, deeper. "I love you, my Chaos Queen. I love you too, my patient king." That night, after the children were finally, blessedly asleep, Luther and I stood on the battlements watching stars appear. "Do you ever think about that day?" he asked quietly. "The altar, when everything changed." "Sometimes," I admitted. "I think about who I was then, scared, humiliated, desperate. And now? Now I'm exactly who I was meant to be." I leaned into him. "Your wife, their mother, queen of 2 kingdoms, builder of alliances. Survivor," Luther added softly. "Warrior, leader. And the woman who turned her worst day into the foundation for everything good in her life." "Our life," I corrected. "Our life," he agreed. We stood there in comfortable silence, his arm around me, watching our kingdoms, north and south, united, stretch out in peaceful darkness below. "No regrets?" Luther asked. "Not a single one." I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You?" "Only that I didn't claim you sooner," he said. "That I wasted any time at all not loving you." "You loved me from the moment we bonded," I pointed out. "I loved you from the moment you stabbed that knife between Kael's fingers," he corrected. "I just didn't admit it yet." I laughed, the sound carrying across the battlements. Somewhere below, I heard the night guards laugh too. They'd grown used to their king and queen's antics over the years. "Come on," Luther said, pulling me toward our chambers. "Before our children develop supernatural hearing and interrupt us again." "They're asleep. That's what you said last time, and Elise walked in asking about trebuchet mechanics while we were—" "Point taken," I interrupted quickly. "Moving fast." We made it to our chambers and locked the door. We'd learned that lesson thoroughly. Later, tangled together in our bed, Luther traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing me. That day at the altar, you could have refused, run, found another solution, but you chose me." "You gave me an ultimatum," I reminded him. "Marry you or watch my kingdom burn." "You still chose," he said, "and kept choosing, every day since." I rolled over to face him properly. "You know why?" "Why?" "Because even then, even when you were being ruthless and threatening, I saw something in you, something real beneath the armor." I touched his face. "I saw someone who understood pain, who fought for what mattered, who would protect what was his with everything he had. And you wanted that protection." "No." I kissed him softly. "I wanted to be that for someone else. I wanted to matter that much, to be chosen with that kind of certainty." His arms tightened around me. "You matter more than kingdoms, more than thrones or treaties or anything else. You are my everything, Christina." "And you're mine," I whispered back. We fell asleep like that, the bond humming contentedly between us, surrounded by the life we'd built from ruins. Epilogue, 10 years later. The throne room was packed for Elise's 18th birthday celebration. My daughter, poised, a confident, deadly, with every weapon in our arsenal, stood beside me, looking every inch the crown princess she was. Jonathan, 16 and already taller than Luther, stood on her other side. Theo, 13 and still the family troublemaker, fidgeted behind them. "Stop fidgeting," Elise hissed at Theo without turning around. "I'm not fidgeting. I'm strategically repositioning." "You're fidgeting," Jonathan agreed. Luther caught my eye and smiled. "Our children. Chaotic, brilliant, stubborn as mountain goats. Perfect." The celebration was also a diplomatic event. Every major kingdom had sent representatives. The Continental Alliance was celebrating its 15th anniversary, 15 years of peace, prosperity, and cooperation. 15 years since Teresa's execution had seemed like the end of everything. 15 years of building something better from the ashes. After the formal ceremonies, I slipped away to the gardens. Found myself standing at the memorial Luther had built years ago, a simple stone monument engraved with one name, Jonathan. "I did it," I said quietly to the memory of the boy I'd never met. "I kept your brother safe, gave him a life worth living, built the peace you wanted." "He knows," Luther said behind me. I turned. He wasn't alone. Elise, Jonathan, and Theo stood with him, all three looking solemn. "We named our son after him," Elise said. "Uncle Jonathan, the prince who wanted peace." "He would have liked you," Luther told them. "All of you. You're everything he hoped the next generation would be." "Less murdery," Theo suggested. "Much less murdery," Luther agreed, ruffling his hair. We stood there together. 5 people who existed because of a tragedy 15 years ago, because Teresa had murdered a child, because I'd been abandoned at an altar, because Luther had claimed me as his only queen, because we'd chosen each other every day since. "Come on," I said finally. "We have a party to return to, and your Uncle Cale promised to teach Theo that knife trick, the one where you almost stab yourself?" Jonathan asked excitedly. "That's all of Cale's tricks," Elise pointed out. We walked back to the party together, our family, our legacy, proof that the worst moments can become the foundation for the best life. Behind us, the stone memorial stood silent in the moonlight. One name, one boy, one tragedy that led to peace. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that we'd honored his memory. By building something beautiful from something broken. By choosing love over revenge, by being better than the cruelty that shaped us, by being the queens and kings the world needed,